everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Only Friends podcast. I think we missed the intro there, but that's okay.
That's all right.
It's Monday. Shit's going to go wrong every now and again, you know? That's how it works. We got a lot of stuff to unpack from the weekend. But first and foremost, let's talk about how this thing went with my absence. Conrad, quite the host.
I mean,
Not bad at all.
I tried.
Not too shabby.
I mean, it was my first time public speaking, so, you know, I gave it my all. I kind of fucked up a little bit, but, you know.
Not noticeable.
What do you think you fucked up?
I should have been more of a host and guiding in the beginning, a conversation. Maybe I'm not.
The piling on wasn't ideal?
You know. I mean, I had to get something to work with.
Yo,
you know?
Landon, you fuck yet or what?
Yo, Landon, why you don't fuck?
Spite's a powerful motivator. The motivator.
I watched the show. I actually, I agree with your overarching sentiment, but I thought the show in general was great, mainly because DePaulo just completely saved your ass.
DePaulo's a sick
Yeah.
fuck. Well, hold on. My man Landon over here was literally, yeah.
He was a little myriady,
Yeah.
but it started off on a bit of a rough foot.
You lived with him for almost 2 years. Like, you know that mood. Like, you know what triggers that mood. You don't
That's
double
true.
down on it.
That's
you know?
true.
I mean, Landon
Well, no,
was
it
a
just
1.
began like that.
Yeah, Landon was a 1 and DePaulo was a 10, so they evened out. They were about a 5 average.
Well, Landon eventually.
Here's what happened. It was supposed to be the Landon Tice show. He was supposed to come in. It started as it was going to be a solo pod. It was going to be only friend. And then you jumped in and stole his thunder, and then
Yeah.
invited DePaulo, who even more so
And then
dampened
you
it.
two just piled on to him at the very beginning.
Oh my god.
Yeah, give him the little brother syndrome. He ain't about that, man. This is
He
a
doesn't like to be the little
large
brother.
individual.
You know
will
what he
fuck
did
you
in that?
up.
You know what he did in that womb? He freaking pillaged in that womb.
He consumed the fourth quadruplet.
Yeah, there was literally, and we said that, and he was like, "No, there wasn't." And then we got the confirmation from his mom on Twitter. There
It's
was
true.
a fourth,
She said that we all lived.
and
We didn't.
at your hands, you didn't. You absorbed that other one for sure, judging by the look of your fellow triplets.
Sometimes I wish I was the one that was absorbed.
Oh man, dark emo Landon might be a good bit.
It's funny. I like it.
That could be a very good
pretty
bit.
funny.
It's only funny because I don't actually mean it.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course.
You don't have to explain
Thank
the
you,
joke.
thank
Come
you.
on, first
Jesus,
world
just
comedy,
leave
Big
it.
man.
killer,
You get
big
it.
killer.
Jesus. What else happened this weekend?
You can never win with these people.
No, you can't.
You really can't win.
Oh,
But
hi,
like,
Newt. We
Neither
have a very
can I, though.
special
Whenever
guest here
something
today.
love-centric comes up, I can't win either. So I feel you.
Anytime what comes up?
Anything about love or dating, I can't win.
I mean, you can win. Yes.
No, what happens is I get slowly more disillusioned until my heart is just broken.
That's because you haven't accepted yet that you have all the power.
No, I don't.
Once you understand the dynamics of all of this and how you are actually the one who's in control, but simultaneously emotionally vulnerable, then and only then will you be able
There's
to be.
one thing to know about me. I don't like being emotionally vulnerable. So when it happens, I do everything I can to make that stop happening.
You are such a dude.
I have one piece of advice for you, Melissa. Do
Yeah.
not listen to his advice on dating.
Right? That's what all my girlfriends say. All my girlfriends are like, don't listen to him.
Hi,
Yeah.
Jamie. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Berkey.
This is what I really want to talk about with Jamie.
dating.
Excuse me. I have fantastic advice.
Really?
When it comes to this.
You have good like flirting advice.
I'm just right. I'm
I'll
just
ask
right
him-
about a lot
I
of
asked
shit.
him, like, how am I supposed to flirt? Because my version of flirting is like a dude flirting. So I'm like, oh yeah, I like to get up in there, and they're like, they're like, you sound like
is just
a guy.
to be really, really mean, and like,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, well, it means I like you. Like when you're 5
See,
years
maybe
old.
that's better though than what I do.
You guys just like flirt like dudes at different ages. You're in
Yeah.
middle school. She's in like high school-ish.
Yeah.
You're angsty teen.
I'm like,
You're
no,
angsty.
I'm not angsty. I'm just like, give me that dick. And they're just
That
like,
has to
wow,
work.
I'm scared. What's going
wow,
on?
seriously? If I had a
No,
dick,
they
I'd
don't
give
say
it to
that.
you right now.
They don't say that. They're not scared, but I scare myself.
Yeah, what happens is that's just what goes through her head, and then the text message says
I have
like,
no
"What are you up
filter.
to, giggle?"
It's like, I'm so cute. And then I'm like, devil emoji, penis emoji. I don't know what I'm doing.
No one does.
That's abundantly clear.
Nobody
And
knows.
I'm not giving advice. Let's be very clear out of the gate. I am in no way, shape, or form advising you. I'm just telling you how it is.
Yeah, but I don't know that is how it is.
That's how it is.
Is it, Jamie? No.
As I said, don't listen to him.
Yeah.
Like, look at.
You're coming in mid-conversation, okay? Like
He speaks for the fuckboy community.
Yes.
so-
I am
Yes.
not a fuckboy. We've been over this.
Are you the alpha fuckboy?
He's
No.
the alpha phallic
Sounds exactly what a
aggressive
fuckboy would say.
You're phallic aggressive. How could you not be a fuckboy?
Shut the fuck up. Listen,
Yay, what a good intro.
first and foremost, fuckboys are manipulative.
Yeah.
I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to manipulate anybody into anything. Second of all, fuckboys are out fucking. I'm too goddamn old for this. I'm gonna
That's
do
true.
a
You actually
podcast
have.
with a
I
bunch
feel
of
like you
kids
haven't
every
been
day.
fucking lately.
Come to the house. You don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, but we haven't seen anyone in a while. I think he hasn't been fucking.
Yeah,
No.
I'm celibate. Okay, I've turned over a new leaf.
Wow.
That's how you win a
Good for
bracelet.
you.
That's how you win a bracelet. Rumor is, it's just me.
I was celibate for a year. I didn't win anything.
Well, we can get to that when we talk about women.
Landon should have about 5 by now.
Yeah, but how good were your
Landon
poker
should have about 5 by
My
now.
poker was good, actually.
Yeah.
Wait, you beat me heads up.
Not when I was celibate.
Oh.
Also, wasn't for a bracelet.
It wasn't for a
Yeah.
bracelet, but it was a victory. All victories
I
should be
actually think I do better when
celebrated.
I'm not celibate.
You gotta be a little bit angry.
Yeah.
We'll need to accrue the data.
I just need therapy. It's fine. Not a big deal.
We all do.
Seems quite
My
reasonable.
friend's like, please get a therapist.
Oh my god! I was seeing
Okay.
someone off and on for a little bit where he goes, "If you ever get a therapist, you're never going to talk to me again."
So that's a red
I was like,
flag.
wow, that self-awareness
That's
is so
a red
hot.
flag. Yeah. Wow, he knows he's toxic.
So did you or did you not get a therapist?
No.
Nice.
Oh no.
Berkey's like, no, that's me.
Oh man.
I just listen. I'm just an ear or a shoulder to lend.
Yeah.
You know, that's you accuse me of being a fuckboy, but I'm just attentive.
No, you're
That's
not a
it.
fuckboy. You're just a sadist.
Partial truth to that, but only because
It's
my
a
picker's
partial.
broken, not because I actually want to cause harm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very fair. So I went to LA on Friday. That's why I
This is
wasn't
over.
here.
that?
Live at the Bike stream is back up and kicking. They made some adjustments. It looked a little bit better. I only got to watch a little bit of it.
I was so happy with the adjustments made.
Yeah.
It meant so much. Like it was like 1,000 times better.
Yeah,
was
no, it was
small.
actually watchable. Like before, there was just I don't know if it was the contrast or it was just like my eyes were not
And
having it.
I
But
feel like
this
they just
time I
had to
could
make
watch.
small adjustments for it to happen. But I think
There's
that
still some that they need to address. But yeah,
Absolutely.
they brightened up the room a little bit. The camera angles are a little bit better.
Yep.
Still need to work on the graphics, of course. And yeah, like whatever. They're going to continually tinker with it. Game was great. On stream, I lost 172,000.
all right.
Down bad.
All right.
Off stream,
Oh.
I won 160,000.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Nice.
I only saw the final number. I didn't even bring it up.
Perfect
Oh, I knew that.
advertising
Yes.
Fucking great.
to keep coming back to these
Oh
games.
yeah.
Got absolutely obliterated. Limitless went off with the 6 deuce on Ace Jack 6 when I had the Ace King. You know, remnants of my past experiences live at the bike. He found a deuce. I paid him off because that's what a goddamn good professional does. You say, take my money, show me the bluff. He's never bluffed. Off stream, however, I made a lot of good hands and won a lot of gigapots.
That's
Love
why you
that.
weren't.
That's
weren't,
always
Love that. I love that.
down
Love that
bad
for
this
you.
weekend.
I love that for you.
I was only down sort of bad. Here's a tough stat to swallow. So I've played 7 live at the bike streams over the last 3.5 weeks, I think. And I'm down like 9,000 total over 60 hours or so. However, I'm stuck
Like 9,000 in
like
transportation.
10,000 in travel.
Oh no.
So I don't know how sustainable this is moving forward.
Sounds like you should start winning.
Max paid.
I'm not sure the winning can overcome an $1,100 tab every time I go to LA.
Well,
It
that's 'cause
does if you
take bougie
keep
Jet
winning.
Suite X.
Yeah.
Yes, but
You gotta
sometimes
take
that's like it did. Like a lot of times it doesn't matter. So I flew back Saturday morning. Unless I flew at 6 a.m., there was one 6 a.m. direct flight that was $84.
Yeah.
Everything else was
You could take the
$350 or more.
bus.
What?
You take the bus.
I'm not taking a
drive.
goddamn bus.
Yeah, at least from
drive.
Chinatown.
What do you think this
Every
is?
hour on the
bus.
hour, man.
Listen, do you want to keep playing or not?
Jim's trying to tell you, take the Southwest flight for $84 instead of Jet Suite.
You
know
want
what
to
happened
get
to
a
Chin?
Jet Suite X.
What happened
He was
to
2
Jim?
hours late.
Yeah.
He missed the entire first hour of commentary because he was late taking the cheap flight.
That's factored into the $84.
Okay, but let's say that you were 2 hours late. You probably saved like $80K.
That's true.
I lost all my money before the stream ended.
That's great.
God damn it.
So it gets back to the point of just winning more.
So the moral of the story is I retire.
No, you just win.
Yeah, maybe. Here's the thing. Here's the trouble with traveling for streamed poker. The streams don't last very long.
Yeah.
So,
What is it, like 3-4 hours?
so I've played streams as short as 3.5 hours and as long as like 6. When I go to LA, like the Poker Go ones are always consistently 6. They just stay that way. But the trouble is that the stream very rarely plays after the fact. So
like-
of the 7 times I've played, we've only continued after twice. Now I happened to be buried both times, which was nice, but nevertheless, usually like the stream just ends after the fact. So it's a very high cost for a very low amount of hours. However, the games are really good.
The game's so much
So you
better
assume that your
off
hourly is pretty high, you know, if you can ever book a fucking win, which Lord knows I can't when the cameras are on.
Me neither.
So really what I need to do is figure out a way to start in the stream game and then like triple the hours off stream because that's the only place I can win any goddamn money.
Yeah, so
You
you
just
just
gotta
gotta
find
bring a bunch of
incentives.
cocaine for after the stream.
There you go.
You don't
Find
have to partake,
incentives.
but just offer
Tell me
it.
more.
Just offer it to the table, and they'll just stay.
They'll just indulge.
Probably.
That's just the way
I
that
don't know.
works.
I've never tried
way of
it,
the
but
world.
I would
Okay.
have to think it would work.
Well, hey, I'm up for trying.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
Speaking of allegedly, this just in. Breaking news. My sources tell me.
Oh,
And this is no joke. I literally have had this confirmed by a few sources, but nothing is official yet. The rumor mill is stating that Ali, Jake, and Rock are all banned from Triton.
Yikes.
I
So-
think we need to figure out like a little name for that group.
The band?
Go on.
I don't know, like when we refer to them.
I mean, yeah, we'll have to put a little thought to it. I agree.
RT
that
aliens.
The RTA.
There's
There's
alien.
definitely some
Yeah.
comic relief to be had here. I'm sure Jamie can stew on it for a moment or two.
Yeah,
The
Jamie will come up
blacklist.
with something.
I'm thinking right
That's
now. too.
racist.
We'll figure it out.
What did you say?
The blacklist.
The blacklist.
The blacklist. I thought I said that.
Yeah, rumor is that they have gone forward with the ban, so it looks as though the major tours are following suit, and precedent has been set where, you know, this small collection that is proven to have been RTAing at least on GG, if not other places, is now going to have no access to live events. So again, as we kind of already mentioned, this is a big deal in the sense that it sets the precedence moving forward for other tours to do the same.
Yep.
But it's not necessarily the biggest deal in the sense that it doesn't reduce their volume that much.
Well, why
Tri-
not?
Well, Triton's only a couple of events a year. I think the most they've ran in a year were 3 events. But
I would say wait for that snowball. It's still coming down the mountain.
right. But prior to the pandemic, the biggest event that they ever run was a £100 buy-in or €100 buy-in. The one that was half businessmen, half pros.
That was $1 million.
What did I say?
Yeah, it was $1 million.
It was $1 million.
What did I
You
say?
said
You said
100,000.
Oh, 100,000. Yeah, sorry, it was $1
I
million.
thought you said 100 pounds.
That's what
I
I thought
meant-
he said.
He said
too.
100,000 pounds, but
Yeah.
I
it was
meant
$1
to say
million.
£1 million.
Yeah.
£1 million buy-in. And that was the one that was a mix between pros and amateurs.
I was like, damn,
So
they got 100
there are
pounds.
certainly opportunities that will be taken away from them for being banned from just EPT and Triton alone. But if PokerGo and WSOP then follow suit, there are no high rollers left.
Yep.
Right? So like their ability to earn has now just absolutely been clipped out from underneath them. And I'll be curious to see what the response is, because they can't, I mean, they could just stay silent forever and just move into another industry, of course, right? But I would imagine they're going to want to try to play again.
Absolutely.
Right? So it'll be interesting to see how all of this shakes out as far as them making an attempt to, I don't know, fight against these bans or find other ways back into action, or at least maybe proactively try to prevent PokerGo and WSOP from following suit and banning them from high rollers. Not sure. We'll stay tuned. Obviously, we'll confirm that the ban did take place on Wednesday. If we don't see them in any high rollers, that's pretty clear confirmation that these rumors are true. Last thing before we get into the shits, I want to talk about the BetMGM Aria $1 Million Guaranteed that's running this summer. I've been lucky enough to partner with them, and even though I've been pretty outspoken that the guarantee is low, I think it's going to smash. And one of the biggest reasons for why I think it's going to smash is that they are running satellites every single Sunday from now until June 12th in Toronto, PA, Michigan, New Jersey. So all of the legalized liquidity pools that they have access to. $6,000 packages are being offered week in and week out. They're expecting somewhere in the neighborhood.
God damn it!
Kitty corner, man.
Look at he's doing like the Joe Biden.
He knows what he did. He knows what he did. So they're expecting 60 or 70 satellite winners, which obviously during the summer is a pretty big influx of let's call it recreational money. And it doesn't really overlap anything else. So I expect the guarantee to double, maybe even triple, which isn't that far-fetched during a summer event. Pretty big thing for both MGM and Aria. This is the second time that they've run a live event. So for anybody who's in those 4 legalized states, check out the satellites that are running. I think they were even running super satellites to the satellite, probably round the clock week long. Be sure to take a shot at that, and you'll be able to find myself and MGM ambassador Darren Elias at the event day of, which I believe is June. I don't know the date. I think it was in that screenshot. I think it's June 22nd, though, if I recall.
Question. So BetMGM is connected to Aria and not MGM.
MGM owns Aria, Bellagio, MGM.
It's an MGM property.
Okay.
Yeah.
MGM also came out with the schedule recently with a whole bunch of stuff.
They did. And we can talk about that a little bit more maybe once Andre gets back, just because I don't have the full details. But I know that we are doing a meetup game there end of this month.
I believe it is on the 28th. I want to say it's the 28th, and we're going to be doing it at like 10 p.m., I think it is. But a couple of us will be there at like 8 p.m.
Yeah, the plan is to do, we're going to like make a whole day of it. Stapes is headlining a comedy show here at, do you know the name of that club that he performs at? The Space.
Yep.
Yeah, I went there a couple times when he was performing, and it was good. And they actually had other poker players up there.
Yeah, Ben Ludlow.
Ben Ludlow, Jess Wellman, I think, did some. And then they had a bunch of other really...
I knew Jess did one at Run Up Reno.
I think she did there too. I'm trying to think now. My memory sucks, but it was all good. Like they had like 7 or 8 comedians. It was super long, but like all of them were funny. Yeah,
I went to the first opening show. It was really good. Obviously the pandemic kind of shut them down, but I think he's headlining another show there that day. Andre wanted to show him some support, so we're gonna get a big group together, head to the Space, check out the comedy show, and then do a meetup game. 1, 2, 1, 3. Who knows? Whatever they run there. 10 p.m. What is it? May 28th?
I think May 28th.
All right, May 28th.
Will be 1, 2, 5, 10, 20.
I'm all in.
40, 80.
7,000.
Why are you so DJing?
I don't know.
That's so weird because like women don't like to gamble at all.
I've got a demon in me. I don't know. I like chaos.
Yeah,
you are an agent of chaos.
I'm an agent of chaos.
I think this proves to be true.
Straddle.
Knit.
Yeah, I chant knit at them, and then like the guy finally did it, and he looks at me like, my guy.
I got you.
Yeah, my guy.
Yo, talking about this shit. Yesterday I was playing, and there's this guy I've been calling my dad. You know what happened? You know what happened?
Wait, what did you say? You call him your dad?
I call him my dad. You know what
Okay.
that means? My man is giving me all the action.
Yeah.
We're having a party. It is an absolute
That's like me when I
blast.
call them daddy.
Yo,
Just kidding. I don't-
Speaking of,
What?
I will tell one final story before we start talking
What, you interrupted
about...
Conrad's
He just-
story.
he just-
Story.
you just completely
What do you mean?
you just landed me.
Well, I was piggybacking off of Melissa. I thought it was done.
Oh,
I was
man,
just
got landed.
adding a little ad lib in.
No. So anyway, we're sitting there playing. This guy is giving it all the action, having so much fun. He literally has $100 in his hand, every hand, and he's like, in one face card, this is in the middle. There's some guy in the middle of us just starts flipping the fuck out. He's like,
No.
all of us want to play this, that, and the third. It's like, dude, play your cards, relax. But it was just, he completely
confused.
ruined the vibe of the game, and I was very upset about it. And I had to let the people know, don't do that shit. Move on.
I honestly couldn't follow that.
Yeah, I think this
Basically,
will...
people were mad that someone was playing too many hands. And don't do that shit.
All right, I'm
Conrad's story.
I was
I'm
very
going to tell a little
upset.
story. A little ditty, if you will. A tale of tales. This past Thursday, we had a Cinco de Mayo party. And it was, for lack of a better term, a shit show.
In a good way, though.
In the best way imaginable,
It was
of
very
course.
fun.
Yeah, it was
It was
fun.
very fun. It was very fun. It was just an absolute shit show. I believe Conrad showed a little bit of behind the scenes on Friday. We had a man magic miking.
What did you say?
Don't worry about it.
You said Conrad?
Yeah, but you're not listening, so don't worry about it.
Oh, sorry.
We had a man magic miking. We had a stripper pole, which, by the way, if you weren't aware, adding a stripper pole to any party
Really fun at parties.
Oh my god!
really brings
So
the best
I
out of
couldn't-
people.
I got on
couldn't
the stripper
resist.
pole.
Yeah. Brian
I
got
know.
on. I was
I
on
was
there.
also-
Not
I
the
gave
way
it.
that
I
you
gave it
would
a
think.
twirl.
Yeah,
It was
not the way
fun.
that you would think. It's not in like a way where you expect every girl to just,
Get naked and stuff.
unleash her inner stripper or anything.
No.
No. Quite the opposite, my friend. Every dude that walked through that door climbed that pole
Oh, yeah.
and slid down ass
yeah.
backwards. Lamanna included.
Well, we were playing Flip Cup, and whatever side lost had to do a twirl.
Oh,
on the,
love it.
on
There
the,
was,
pole.
Love that. I love that. For
I
you.
just went for it.
Yeah.
I've never been on a stripper pole in my life.
Honestly, you did
and
well.
I just jumped
You
on
owned
it.
it.
I
I
spun all the way
believe
down,
that.
and I was like, that was
You did
easier than
well.
I thought.
I could see 22-year-old Lamanna.
I think I got a
drunk
future
at
in
some
this.
strip
Had those
club.
glasses on,
Just
yeah.
jump on the pole and just have a fucking party.
No,
I don't think you know how strip clubs work, my
last
friend.
Last thing I want to do when I enter a strip club is get kicked out.
Yeah.
He's there for a good time, not a
Yeah.
short time.
Come on.
So, I'm kind of just like painting the picture of what we were up against here. It was a really good time. Everybody had a blast. So, 10:30, 11 o'clock rolls around. The night's winding down. Everybody's leaving. There's a few people at the doorway that I don't know, but they seem to be on their way out. Renell's cleaning. Like she's clearly done and over with. And I'm like, okay, that's my cue.
Oh.
Going to bed, everybody. Good night. Go in my room and realize that I'm gross and need to shower before bed. Hop in the shower, and I hear a knock at the door. And I go, I'm showering. And I hear the door open. And I hear a girl say something. Don't recognize the voice, but I just assume it's Renell, and she needs something. I was like, I'm in the shower, whatever you need. And then a girl appears
Yeah.
that I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And I quickly grab a towel while the water's still running, and I go, can I help you? And she just looks me up and down, gives me the once over, and goes, okay, daddy.
Yeah.
Man.
And I'm standing there dumbfounded, like, pardon me? And she just doesn't budge.
Yeah.
Like, she's going nowhere. And I'm like, what? I'm sorry, I'm Matt. She goes, I know, you own this place, right? And I'm like, yeah, let me get some clothes on and I'll come out there. And again, she goes, okay, daddy. And walks out the door.
Yeah.
And I am just like, I feel like I'm in the midst of a cross between college and some
You're
poorly
welcome,
written
by the
comedy.
way. You're welcome. That was all my doing.
I'm welcome?
I was all my doing.
You owe me an apology.
Ages of chaos.
She came in and she's like, who owns this place? And I was like, that's his room right there. Just walk in. You don't even need to know. I was like, just go climb in his bed. It's probably fine. And then she's like, all right. And then she just goes for it.
In the future.
Is that good or no?
In the future.
Be a good friend.
I would
That
just.
was good. What do you mean?
Send him at least a pretty girl. Jeez.
Damn, bro.
She was pretty. Rude, first
Conrad's
of all.
rude.
Yeah, rude.
Rude. We're going to get
Rude.
canceled
Rude.
based off
Rude.
of Conrad.
Rude.
Rude. Bad friend.
In the future,
I'm not the bad one.
just vet the person a little better. That's all.
She looked down to fuck. What else do you want? I mean, is there more? You need like her college degree or what?
We've discussed I am not a fuckboy. I need some substance, Melissa. This is why you can't just be.
When do you need
This
substance?
is why you can't just be sending the devil an eggplant
Since-
emoji and expecting a hit.
It works.
Does it?
I need eggplant. Do I get what I need? Yes.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm a great wing woman.
Yeah, you're the
You're
best.
welcome.
You're the absolute fucking best. Can't wait to experience that again. Moving on to the final note of the weekend that's going to carry us into our biggest story. All the conversation was wrapped around PokerGo. I don't know if it was a PokerGo decision or a WSOP decision, but basically they announced their streaming schedule and the ladies event was not a part of it. Jeff Platt said that the ladies event final table falls on the day or two in between the end of the streaming series and the main event, and that it's a whole new crew that goes in. This part is actually true. I don't know if it has anything to do with the actual decision to not stream the ladies event, but I do know they bring in an entirely separate crew for the main event as they put that product on ESPN or CBS Sports or whatever the fuck they're partnered with this year. With that said, though, it did spark the debate of kind of a lot of voices saying, like, this is why there's no female participation in poker, which led to a response from Daniel kind of saying something to the effect of, I've been a professional poker player for 26 years, and throughout the course of that time, we've seen a rise and fall, a boom and a collapse, and at no point in time was it ever a different ratio than the current 95-5 that we see. And I think that that's probably a good place to open up this conversation, introduce today's guest officially this time, Jamie Kerstetter. Just to kind of give a little bit of background as to like why, well, let me rephrase. Just to give a little bit of reference as to like why I reached out to you specifically to talk about this. You've been very active in promoting females in this industry, which I think that anybody who follows you is pretty familiar with, and also very good for the industry as a whole. B, we're good friends, and the biggest thing that I wanted to kind of get out of the way when we were talking about this is like, let's have a good faith discussion, because I think there's a lot of common ground that we agree on, but I think that maybe there are certain points that we might be on opposite ends of the spectrum with, and I don't want to get into a shouting match with somebody. And I also don't want to create like an echo chamber where it's just like I do all the talking and there's no real feedback.
If you don't want a shouting match, you could just like roll over.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. You can lawyer me to death, but I will scratch and claw my way out if at all possible. So I guess like the first thing I want to discuss. Oh no, I lost my notes. The first thing I want to discuss is well, let's talk about, I guess, your reaction to that, because I know that you had a pretty strong reaction to both Daniel's stance and then that general sentiment as a whole. And I think from there, maybe we can just kind of outline areas where you and I agree on a lot of things, and then maybe discuss the points of difference.
Yeah. Okay. So it was another tweet that I actually responded to. Is Kelly Minkin's tweet.
Oh, right. I forgot about that one.
Nobody wants to watch the ladies' final table, or like they want to watch it as much as they want to watch WNBA. Nobody cares, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was just like one of those easy jokes that like dudes are gonna be like, yeah, fucking yeah, Minkin, I agree. You're not like the other girls. And I'm like, that annoys me, because there's no reason. You don't have to watch it. Just don't shit on everyone else's like good time. Like there are women who love that event.
Yeah.
One of my friends made it a couple years ago when they didn't have it streamed. They had a different, bigger event stream, so it got bumped. And it was in the corner of Brasilia. I couldn't see my friend. It was like 40 people deep. It was insane. There were people in a tournament all crowding around like, what's the big commotion back there? Because so many people were supporting their friends.
Yeah.
So I get that it might not get the biggest numbers of like viewers as the other tournaments, but the people who want to see it are like adamant poker supporters.
The buzz
They care.
around the ladies event, the seniors event, and the tag team are all very special and unique at a bare minimum to the public who is there, right? Like those are the 3 events that seem to have the deepest rails, that kind of incorporate the amateur audience the most, where it's not necessarily geared towards putting strictly the biggest names and the most talent on display. Like there's a big difference between Dean Eggs chasing player of the year, making a 10K PLO final table, and the rail that kind of comes for the ladies 1K or the seniors event or the tag team. And I think that you're right. It's a very big missed opportunity. Maybe big is the wrong word, but
it's big because it's because of like what comes with that event. It is the most feel-good event. Like I commentated it with Jennifer Tilley, who had so much fun, and Lon McCarran, and they were excited to be there. And every woman there was like trying so hard. It was not, I won another $1 million, add it to my pile of millions, up another trophy, another bracelet. There was like no one who was acting like they've been there before. There's no person too cool for that spot. And I think even if there's not a ton of people watching, it's really important to put out something very positive like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not faulting PokerGo. If the schedule is what it is and they literally can't do it, it's okay. Just like fix it for next year.
Yeah.
Because they did fix it, whatever it was. It wasn't the fall, but the one before that, I think, where we had a stream. I can't remember, but they did fix it. Like the year prior, people were mad, and all these women's groups were like, hey, we're really trying here. We're trying to put something out there that, you know, to kind of sell poker to a greater audience of women. And they did listen, and they did do it the next year.
Yeah,
So-
I think this is a clear case of low-hanging fruit, right? It's like it may not move the numbers much, if at all, but it's a demonstration of like good faith
We
and
care,
putting
yeah,
effort.
like we're listening to you. And for groups like Poker Power, where they're trying to get 1 million new women to play, they are doing the outreach for us.
Right.
We don't have to do, like when Daniel's like, oh, we tried everything. I'm like, we've tried nothing for the first part. But like, there are groups who are working tirelessly to get these people into the game.
Yeah.
Give them a little assist here and there. Like, give them something to root for. Put it on TV, put it on wherever, like stream it. These people will do the promotion for you and get the viewers.
Yeah, I wonder if it's too late for them to possibly change the dates. I imagine that it probably is.
I think so, because people plan their schedules and their
Right.
vacations and whatever. already,
Right.
so.
Right, so like we kind of just have to accept this as an L, but I still think it does open up the larger conversation.
Is there really nothing that can be done? This is where I'm like, I don't really believe that. It's far enough away from that time, and we have other places to stream things from. We don't need to use that set, and we don't need to use those people.
Well, what would you
if it
suggest?
was life or death, they could have it at the studio. I'm not sure where the tables are taking place.
But they can't
Why?
because it's a Caesars run event, and they're not going to go to
Okay.
an
But there
Aria
could be
or
another
MGM.
location, like another Caesars one. I just think if you said
That's the
to
thing
me,
is-
this is your problem of your life, you need to solve it. We have money, we have
Well,
people, I could solve it.
They could solve it in the sense that they could build a temporary set. Like PokerGo or WSOP could incur the cost. Obviously, like Maury's team has the resources if in a pinch they need to create another table, another set, like they could do all of that stuff, I'm sure.
If it's ridiculously costly, it's not worth it.
It's
Like
gonna
I'd
be
rather them
ridiculously
fund it
costly.
in future
Right.
years and just be like, oh, oops. Also, like this is where I don't think it's PokerGo's fault. Maury, if he's in charge, like he gives women opportunities all the time. Like he took a real
Yeah.
flyer on me when I'm like commentating tiny little events, like do the main. I'm like, what? That was
Yeah.
him. So I
I just think it's like an oversight
yeah.
that rears its ugly head at the wrong time, right? Because if they had released their stream schedule in March, then there's enough time to do something about it. You could change the dates or whatever the
Sure.
case may be.
Also, I think it's good to have the ladies event close to the main for the point that you have a bunch of women in town to play satellites to the main for those megas. Also, give like 10 women 10 to 100K, and all of a sudden we have more women playing the ladies event. And every time we have that,
Yeah.
there's a chance they make a run like that. I feel like it is good to have it not so far from the main, but it sucks that probably like 1 day difference they could have streamed it.
Yeah. Maybe there will be like some sort of compromise where they can stream it without hole cards. That seems like it might be a possibility because now all they need is the camera crew. They don't need actually all the tech. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because I don't think that's fair, but I would say that I think it's probably just an oversight. which kind of does speak to the larger discussion at hand. But before we kind of get into that, I wanted to I want to get the elephant in the room out of the way so that it doesn't detract from a more streamlined conversation. Basically, I don't want to debate misogyny. The idea that anybody's taking the stance that in a male-dominated field misogyny doesn't exist at scale is insane, in my opinion. And whether you currently experience it as a man or not, as far as like witnessing it or whatever, means very little to me. Because if you say that you don't see it, I know the Max Pescartelli tweet, it's just like, okay, either you don't see it because you turn a blind eye. Sorry, what?
They're outing themselves as,
Right.
that behavior is totally acceptable to me because I do that too.
One of the comments was like, "Oh, I haven't seen harassment. I've seen guys get a little friendly after a few drinks," and I'm like, "Ew, you know, I'm the one doing
I've seen
it."
a guy pinch a girl's nipple, but I do that all the time. So
Just
who
a little
cares?
friendly. I just like rubbed her leg a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's what they mean. Like when
Yeah.
they're saying I've never seen it, I'm like,
Right.
oh, you're excusing what you're doing.
It means you have a very loose definition of what it is.
The copium is so real.
Yeah. I mean, like anybody who's basically saying that they don't see it is either A, turning a blind eye to it, or B, probably guilty of it at some micro level themselves and doesn't understand the line between what's okay and what's not. So I definitely don't want to spend an hour going through every for instance of like, well, this is where misogyny exists. And this is because it's like, you're just right. Like, I agree with you. I
say it again, but slower.
Christ. But yeah, it's like, you know, I know that these stories exist. I know that they're real. I've even personally like witnessed enough of it, especially in the private game where it gets really, really convoluted.
Would you think that it's more at private games or at low stakes? Because I feel like low stakes, like 1-3, is like where I've seen it the most.
I mean,
You'll see it at higher volume at low
But I
stakes?
haven't really played high
higher
stakes. so-
volume, worse at high stakes.
Not
right?
worse. Oh yeah, way
No,
worse.
way worse
worse.
at high stakes.
But it's so convoluted because these girls are being paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
And like, for instance, I took a girl to a private game who was like telling me that she's an atmosphere model for these games and is like looking for a gig, whatever. So I took her to one and, you know, she basically got like heavily petted. I exaggerate the petted, but like she was like basically being like over the pants pet for the majority of the night. And I was like texting her and DMing her, you know, by the end of the night, I was just like, I don't know like what my role is as far as like being or allowing this to happen versus like stepping in and saying like, where's the line? And, you know, effectively she was just like, yeah, it was gross, but like I earned every penny kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, that's your choice. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't want to yuck your yum. I don't want to be the one to overstep here and be like, hey, get your hands off her. Whenever
Yeah.
she's like, look, he just gave me a $1,000 chip.
Yeah.
Right.
He can put his finger wherever he wants.
Whoa. I think, well, one tip, if guys like want to do some white knighting, it's like, I don't really want that. Like, I think, but other people might. But at a table, I can usually handle myself.
See, I do.
always appreciate if a guy is like, are you okay? Or do you want me to say something? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, that is always a good response. Because then if I'm like, oh, that guy's my friend and we're joking, it's cool.
Right.
Or if
Yeah.
I'm like, this dude's fucking freaking me out, can you say
Yeah.
something? I don't want to be the person to like put myself in danger by like going to tattle on him to the floor.
Right.
It's nice
Yeah.
when a guy like asks, and I feel like that's almost always going
I
to be
feel like I've never
received well.
actually been asked. Usually they just sort of like make eye contact with me. Like, we both know this guy is a weirdo. But if it's like Conrad at the table, he'll back me up. I love getting backed up by the table because they're not gonna. A lot of times, the men who do stuff like this, they're not willing to like listen to a woman.
Yep.
Like they will listen to men around them though, because they want to fit in, and part of it is probably already them trying to be cool and like showboat a little for the other guys at the table because they feel insecure. And they're overcompensating.
I'm not gonna lie. I tried to take full advantage of the last time.
The last time was really funny because there was this guy who sits down, and within like 5 minutes of him sitting down, he like made a mention of paying me for sex or something. And so I knew he was going to be an issue from them. But every time we got in a pod, he was like so intense at me. Like, you don't want to play with me. Like, have you ever even played cards? Well, and then like at one point I just said like, why are you doing this? Is it because I'm a woman or what's happening here? And he's just like, no, this is just how I am. And Conrad's like, you've been in a lot of pods versus me. I never heard anything like that from you. And he's just like, oh.
That was funny. I wasn't talking about that one. I was talking about the one that said that he can get you to come up for a drink, and
yeah.
I know you don't drink, so I was offering him like 10 to 1.
I wish he took that. Close. You would have totally won.
Yeah, I think it is a fine line, especially like being somebody who may have like reasonable morals or values and is on the outside looking in, between being like the obnoxious table captain who over polices versus like stepping in where it's very clear. And I think like socially we can kind of understand, but the problem is like as I'm reading these stories, to me it feels like something that may appear a bit innocuous to an onlooker in real time is actually like this gargantuan deal to a lot of females in their experience. And that's just really a really high bar to set for your fellow man, not because they're not capable of stepping in when appropriate or even being more aggressive with the way that they step in or anything like that. It's more so that like it's just not communicated to us. And that's certainly not like I think a lot of us as male poker players live by the kind of idea of environments and markets kind of like policing themselves. And when something's egregious, we know when to step in. But when something is like on that line between gray or between black and white and is like very gray, we're just kind of like, I don't know. And it's like, yeah, if I know you, I can send you a text, right? And I could just be like, are you okay? Kind of thing.
Well, this is a suggestion I have that wouldn't be that hard to implement is if every major poker room has just a number you could text that will get to a floor person. Like, because a few times I've been in a spot, like there was only one really bad incident and it got solved because like DJ McKinnon white knighted for me and followed the guy out behind him. He was following me to the parking lot at 3 a.m.
Get his ass, DJ.
Super fucked up. If there was a phone number that you could text and it's going to go to a floor person and you could just be like, hey, seat 5 is being real weird with the dealer.
Yeah.
He is like, the dealer is there, they cannot leave, and he is making passes, he's touching her hand. Like that's the thing where like it's very obvious if you get up, go talk to the floor, then the floor comes over and is like, sir, I need to talk to you. It's like,
right. Then
well,
you put a target
Jamie
on
just
you.
tattled. Instead, it's like you could text the exact situation that's happening and be like, could you kind of hover over at our table and like maybe excuse this guy if he can't handle himself?
Yeah, there's also just cameras too. So like if they want to check and see if they're like you're lying or not, there's literally evidence everywhere in the casino.
And I think that would be really great. Same thing with like cocktail waitresses. It's like whatever harassment that I've endured, like I know it's 1% of what the people who are wearing skimpy clothes because of their job, or the person who is captive there. While,
and
guys
they're
are
forced
all,
to
like,
be nice to them. We're not. Like we can be assholes back to them, and we're not going to get fired.
The dealers are depending on tips, so like they don't want to be the person who's like, floor, get this guy out of here.
Right.
In your experience with when these scenarios present themselves, how often would you say that the person guilty of the act is sober?
Like drinking definitely contributes.
It's a lot, right?
It definitely contributes. I also think the fact that a lot of people are on vacation and they're in Vegas especially is like, oh, what happens to your stays here? It's like, I live here. And like, no, you're touching me doesn't just go home with you. Like, you're gross. Like, that's definitely, the atmosphere is a little more rough.
Yeah,
like,
it's kind of brutal because I know you and I were talking about this a little bit off air, but there's this other fine line that isn't really addressed, but is just kind of true, is that small stakes is very unbeatable according to the rake if you don't have people losing 30 big blinds per 100. And generally speaking, the people who are losing 30 big blinds per 100 are taking a lot of liberties with social norms. Because they know they're the whale.
They can do it.
Right. So it's just like, I don't think anybody should be exploiting others for their benefit in that regard, especially when it's not like you get compensated according to your tolerance level, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're the woman getting pet by some random creep, it's not like you get the majority of the money that he's dusting off, right? Like you're doing it for the greater good of everybody at the table, and that's not really acceptable or needed to be tolerated. But it does become a thing where it's like, well, how far do we go with policing this? Like, do we start to make games sober? Do we stop serving drinks after a certain time?
Don't do that.
No, just let people it's similar to calling the clock. Like there shouldn't be a stigma about calling the clock on people.
Yeah.
It moves the game along. It won't be so hurtful to people's egos to have the clock on them if we just do it more regularly.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Same thing with calling out bullshit. Like when someone's being weird, a guy should be like, you're being fucking weird, dude.
I mean,
like,
it doesn't even have to be like such a serious thing. Like I've honestly had like fun trolling guys like that with the other guys at the table.
That's
like
the
it turns
play, in my
into like a
opinion.
joke, and then you're all making fun of this idiot for being an idiot, and then he realizes like, oh, this is not like socially acceptable behavior. But like then it turns that negative experience into like a positive one where you're bonding with the rest of the table over how dumb this guy is, and it's like funny.
I love that moment.
Isn't
It's so funny,
Isn't that what
yeah.
we're all doing right now with Berkey?
Yeah.
Sure.
Why do you invite me?
Comic relief, obviously. Yeah, so I guess like, all right, I'll kind of stick a pin in that because I want to just make it abundantly clear that like we're all in agreement that a lot more can be done. A lot of heavy lifting can be done. There are solutions out there that can make these mixed company environments a lot more tolerable. And I think that that's a good term to start to normalize too, right? Like it's kind of a term that I learned in college going to bars where a group of guys speak a certain way around themselves. And, you know, I've had bartenders step into those conversations and be like, look, you just don't talk that way in mixed company. Meaning like when there are females around that you don't know, you're just not able to speak with the same liberty. I'm not saying it was directed at me or anything along those lines, but like, you know, misogyny is always going to exist, unfortunately, to some level. And it is a societal problem, not a poker problem. But I do think that there's a lot of heavy lifting that can be done by teaching people how to just act better and like more humane in mixed company, like treating all genders with equal respect. And I think this is even a bigger conversation now as we move into an era where you know, as a society, we've become a lot more open and accepting of transgenders and people who don't necessarily identify any one particular way, right? Like we need to be able to welcome everybody with open arms and really only scrutinize people based off of their wallet. Like, because at the end of the day, that's the name of the game, right? It's a battle of wits and wagers where the only thing that should qualify or disqualify you is your ability to ante up. I basically just wanted to get all that out of the way because I think that could be a big distraction whenever we're talking about all these other points where, you know, it's easy to point and say like, well, these companies are run by men and the audience is men and yada, yada, yada. It's like, yes, we definitely agree. A lot of this can change. So moving more so into the conversation that I'm interested in having, because I think that there could potentially be some level of growth that can be spurned of it. And it's kind of like piggybacking off what you said about Daniel's tweet of we've tried everything and failed. And you kind of eye rolling at that. I'm a little bit more on the side of that, where I do think that a lot of the most common marketing tactics have been tried, and there's very little that hasn't been tried to pull in the female market that was successful in pulling in the male market.
That's my main thing is like, give me specific, like what has been tried. Give me a specific instance where a lot of money has been put behind something or a lot of man hours have been put behind something instead of just we made a GPI Ladies Award. Like I appreciate that, but I don't think that's actually like
I think that
big effort.
those are easy things to point to. So like ladies events, GPI Female Player of the Year Award, things like that are very gender specific are obviously marketing tactics that are not being employed to men.
But ladies events generate rate and pay for it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they're they're still probably losing some, but
I don't think so because they have events running alongside it as well. I think they probably end up making more money by offering like
maybe. Yeah, I guess without looking at stats, it'd be tough to know. But anyway, most events are going to be pretty close to zero for the house, with the exception of like the main and the majors. But those are just like tactics that are specifically targeting women. And I agree with you. Like it's not that impressive. It's not like there's a ton of resources being poured into that. It's low hanging fruit. It's an easy idea. But I do think that like throughout the course of the boom from like 03 to call it Black Friday, there was a lot of equivalent representation. I don't want to say equal representation in the sense that there were as many female ambassadors or money being poured into female players as there were men, but there was an equivalent amount in the sense that if the ratio was 10-1 or 9-1 or 8-1, something like that, that was reflective, if not a better ratio upon examining the representation of these sites.
But what is that money being spent on? women's market.
Wait, what do you mean?
When you're saying there's outreach that was equivalent to like the 5 to 8% of us.
Yeah.
If 5 to 8% of us is being spent, 5 to 8% of the money is being spent on women, how? Like, what do you mean by that? Because I think something that like I think Daniel and other people would think is actually marketing to women is really marketing to men. When every female pro is like hot and 25, it starts to be like, okay, I do think a lot of these women are great ambassadors for the game, but it tends to be like still marketing towards men. Like there have been very few, like we talked about it last night.
No. There's way more of a spectrum. Annie Duke. So it ranged not only just in age, but in all physical capacities. Everything from like if we look pre Black Friday, I think that's the most important time. The biggest female ambassadors were Jen Harmon, Annie Duke, Annette Oberstead, Vanessa Selps, Vanessa Russo, Liv Marie. I'm trying to think. I guess Erica Lindgren for a short period of time, and like Erica would be the one that I would specifically say was very much marketed specifically for a sex appeal. I can recall her being on like a late night show
There's
that was
like a striptease show.
Yeah,
she's a pretty cool person, but like I don't want to like
great,
nitpick and be like this person's hot and this one isn't. Like not
No,
that.
that wasn't what I was trying to
It's
get
more
at.
like in the last, unless you
Smash
guys
or
want to
pass.
do it, you want to get
Smash
down to
or
brass
pass.
tacks. Let's go.
Turn them into men.
smash or pass.
Jamie.
That was what I was getting at. I was getting
it's
at more so like
in the last 10 years, it's like it's really taken a turn.
Agreed.
Yeah, but I'm trying to say like this is when people are like we've tried everything. I'm like,
But I wanna
this
make
just is not true. Like.
I agree wholeheartedly with your sentiment. I want to make the counter argument, though, that they did try for the first 10 years of the boom and saw no growth. So it only makes sense to pivot into a targeted market.
I just don't agree. Like, I kind of want to see when Daniel says up, it's always been 5 to 8%. I'm like, I find that really hard to believe. We've been interviewing Doyle Brunson for basically like a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
He could name the women who played with him back in the day. There were 3. Like he would just be like, oh,
Yeah.
this person was good at stud. This girl had money from oil and whatever. And like he literally could name the 3. So I'm like, I'm sorry. I think we have grown at some point, like
Well,
during the boom or something. Like something has happened, and I would really like to see an accurate.
It's all
breakdown.
proportional, though. Like when Doyle played, there was only hundreds of poker players.
Okay, 3 of them were women.
Yeah.
That's
But
what I mean.
also,
I'm like, this is a very. There
but
is
also
a
Daniel's
difference.
talking about basically since the boom. So maybe a few years prior. I think the ratio. Well, to be fair, we would have to agree somewhat on the ratio. Like whether we want to say it's consistently been 95.5 or that there's been like 1 degree of or 1 standard deviation off of that 5%. So call it like anywhere from 3 to 8% throughout the course of the last 20 years. We definitely have to come to some agreement, though, that the ratio has been heavily skewed male.
There's no argument there.
But like not simple majority, not like 75-25. Like we're nowhere near, at least everything that I've seen, we're nowhere near double digits as far as like female participation.
Except for online poker.
Yes, so that's kind of the unique outlier. So I've heard numbers as big as like 22%.
My dog is about to eat Conrad.
mad
Come
at
here.
I'm so sorry.
He's mad
Come
at
here,
Conrad
buddy.
for interrupting.
Dude is not happy with Conrad.
Yeah, he said don't talk to my woman. Come here, baby. Come here.
It'd be nice if we could at least get him in a shot.
Yeah, come here, dude. I'll get him
Right
a
here.
Come
It's
here,
in a
baby.
shot.
Yeah, so I have read numbers as high as like 22% for online. And that does beg the question then of, or maybe not beg the question, but it kind of presents the option that there are a lot more barriers than maybe we're acknowledging to live poker. Obviously, the misogyny is part of it because that's going to exist less, if not completely removed online. But there's also the element of a much lower barrier of entry cost-wise. So you can play as low as 1 cent, 2 cent. I'm sure that those statistics are pulling from every single real money game, not just like starting at $100 buy-in or something like that.
There's also like women are often the primary caregivers.
Correct.
Everyone should look at Newt. He's cute. As I'm like primary caregiver, I'm like, yes, mine is just a dog, but I still elect to play online poker way more than live because of him.
Yeah.
And I think also a lot of women are very busy and have time constraints that they don't want to go play a 3-day, 12-hour day tournament.
Right.
Or they might want to, but can't. Whereas online, they can sit and play like when they're done with work, they're done with whatever other responsibilities there are. But I'm bringing that up because one of the most annoying arguments where people just throw their hands up and go, well, there's nothing we could do, is our brains are just different. Our like little girl brains don't like math. And that makes me really annoyed because it's just like, if that's really what people want to go by, then what does it matter? Don't even try then.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think that like trying to, like, we should all be operating from the standpoint that this is not a physical sport. So there's nothing differentiating males from females as far as like ability or capability or anything like that goes. I think that the argument that I would present is that it just comes down to general interest, and that interest seems to be incredibly low in the female population.
I mean, it's cultural too. It's when you think about when men start getting into poker, they usually are having home games with their friends, and you know, that's like a bonding thing and it's a social thing. And for like, I never was invited to a girls' poker home game growing up. Like that, we didn't do that.
Gambling is a thing where I have always done guy stuff. I was a tomboy. I played baseball instead of softball. My dad was like, okay, you're a weird kid. Go play with the boys. Don't care. Like my parents were really cool about stuff like that. But I just didn't gamble. We didn't play poker really. And I remember the first time walking into a casino by myself being like, what is wrong with me? Like, I just felt like, what am I doing? Like, this just feels wrong. I had never done a Super Bowl pool or like some March Madness thing. So I was just like, is this something I should be doing? And I feel like that is a high barrier when you feel like society is just like, yo, you're like stepping out here when you're trying to just go play poker.
It is like stepping out of cultural norms. Like for me, my dad like was a huge gambler and I was really close with him. So that was something that like we related on, I think, and sort of always reminded me of him. So that like pushed me more towards it. And I never thought it was like a bad thing. I always kind of was like, this is just what people do. But I think that there's a little bit more of like that cultural barrier and like stigma for girls to get into it and to like, it's just like, no, I don't know any groups of girlfriends who have home games, but I know so many groups of guy friends who have home games growing up. So it's like, when a woman gets into poker, it's usually like later in life. It's not really at the same time as most men, I think.
And you have to really want to do it. And that's something where I'm like, I'm proud of really wanting to do it. I'm proud of like overcoming some things that were pretty annoying. The feeling of being really intimidated and getting over it is valuable. Yeah. I also think there's a reason I really like women who play poker. They have a lot more in common with me than an average woman, I think, because I do respect that where you're like, I'm not going to let someone like say something mean to me. I'm not going to play anymore. Like I'm not going to do that. My problem with it is when people do the like survivorship bias thing, like, well, I overcame this, I did this, and you should have to do it too. I'm like, why are we hazing new players?
So much
Let them play poker.
Bias.
Like, I want my mom to be able to sit down and play. She doesn't have that same attitude. Like, I want people to be nice to her when she plays. She's gonna lose. She's happily losing. She happily loses at blackjack.
Yeah, it's also just like not cool to be an asshole. And like I'm, I'm never gonna think that that's like cool or.
We talk about the bottom line too much with this topic, where I'm like, we all want new players in the game. Our bottom lines get better with new players, but how about just don't be an asshole? Like, there's value in that too, even if it doesn't make you more money. Right. It's still just like the right thing to do, and you should want people to be happy when they play poker with you.
All of that's true. I don't think anybody would ever disagree with any points that you guys or you girls are making in this particular instance. I think that these are the defaults that we're operating off of. People are assholes. People are misogynistic. There is a higher barrier of entry for women than men financially, from the caregiver standpoint, as you mentioned. Lack of other successful models, and then most importantly, a lack of community and or social norm that allows them to enter. So
that's being fixed. That's the thing where I really think people need to give it time. Honestly, like when I first was starting to play poker, I was the only woman playing and I felt very out of place. And I was like, if I do something stupid, everyone at the table is going to notice and say something because they're watching what I'm doing. It doesn't feel like that anymore. And I feel like there's a lot of older women in the game who have communities, even just from Facebook, like a disorganized kind of one. There's also like WPA has been around forever, Poker League of Nations, Poker Power. There is now community. There are like women who live together in the summer and play together. When I played in Rosarito, I moved for a year and a half after Black Friday. I was so jealous of like the big grindhouse where I'm like, man, there's like 8 guys living together and they're all like supportive of each other. And it's like, wow, he's making a run. Let's all watch. There's probably some light ghosting happening. Let's just get that out there. But it was hard to find that. It took me a while to like feel like, oh, these people are safe people to live with. These are my friends. They want the best for me. They're not just trying to sex with me. These are like, that's a thing where like, every woman will have it cross their mind at some point
Yeah.
if you're having
Yeah.
that, but that makes it hard to like assimilate into the community. I think some of these efforts by women's groups are going to be massive, but they're not overnight.
I agree. I think that the women's groups are amazing, specifically Poker Power, because I think that they're approaching it from a root cause analysis and solution standpoint. The bigger point I'm trying to make is not that those things don't exist within the community. They do, and you're right, they're growing, and they're making it a safer space once you've been indoctrinated into poker. The pushback I have is the getting women in the door. There's such a general lack of interest, right? Like, it would be different if we saw the numbers spike and fall, spike and fall, spike and fall, where it's like clearly they got introduced to poker and had a really distasteful experience and left, or they didn't find their community, or they didn't find.
You wouldn't know that. That's where this is where I want to push back on that. You wouldn't know if some woman came and played 1-2 and got grabbed and left and never played again. They're not showing up in a stat.
Well, we wouldn't know it live, but we would know it.
But there's a lot of people like that. Like, you don't really
We would
get
know it MTT wise.
Okay, but you wouldn't for like. But a lot of people don't start out with an MTT. Like, I feel like a lot of people. I played
high barrier of entry, right?
2-4 limit. What'd you say?
It's a high barrier of entry to like start playing MTTs unless you're playing
No,
like dailies
quite the
or
opposite,
whatever,
I
right?
think.
There's like dailies, like 60.
Yeah,
I feel like
I think the
almost
barrier of entry
everyone.
for MTTs
I
is
don't
much
know. Maybe
lower.
you guys are different, but like almost everyone I know started out by being like,
But
"Oh,
we're
there's
old.
a poker game. I'm
Yeah,
walking in here.
same.
It's 4 p.m. I'll throw $100 in and play 2-4
Right.
limit."
But,
like,
but we're very old. We started that way because that was what was
yo,
most
speak
available.
for yourself. You're very old. I'm not in my 40s yet. That's crazy.
I'm just saying,
How
like
dare he?
MTTs were like unicorns whenever we first got introduced to
Yeah.
the game, where now it's actually like the lowest barrier of entry, and it's the biggest growth metric that we see. Cash games are absolutely dying day over day, and MTTs are growing, and the barrier of entry continually gets lower. Like, you can go to the Venetian anytime a series is running and play like a $200 or $300 buy-in with $50K up top.
But I'm saying it's not like we have this like, we're not gathering data on every single woman who's ever come to a poker room. So like, if she played a $60 nightly, we're not like, okay, Hen and Mob had 20% interest in it. Like, they're not even tracking it. I think that like there probably have been a lot of women who tried and had a bad experience and left. I think Libore made a tweet that was about basically like, women have to be some of these like STEM and poker and gaming and chess. People need to be obsessed with it to get to the top. Like,
Yeah.
you have to try so fucking hard to get to the top. But my point to that is that that's to make it a profession. You don't know when you're starting you want to make it a profession. Like, you go and you try something you might be interested in. Does it fit or not? Like, did I enjoy this or not? Do I have potential in this or not?
Yeah.
The obsession grows over time.
No,
So
Yeah.
if you don't even get introduced to it because you think it's not a thing you're supposed to be doing because of society or whatever, that's a problem. And then also, if the first time you walk in there, you're like, whoa, I don't belong. Look at everyone around me. I don't look like these people. And I'm getting treated weird. You don't get the chance to spark an obsession. You don't
Yeah.
get to win a tournament your first time out and be like, oh, wow, like, I'm meant for this. There's people getting turned away at the door for sure. And we have to work on that.
There definitely is, and it's for a lot of the reasons that by default we were talking about. I want to talk a little bit about the Liv Boeree tweet, because I think that perhaps you might be misinterpreting or only interpreting partial whenever you take that stance. You're correct that obviously the obsession aspect is what allows you to rise, but I don't think anybody's making the argument that we need greater representation in the high stakes. Like, we actually have an okay ratio there, all things considered, with how few women participate in the game to begin with. I think Liv's better or bigger point is that when it's very clear from the onset that there's no path forward, there's no real clear identity in leveling up and being not even elite, but winning, basically, right? Because the challenge of poker is that the vast majority of people lose, and hubris has gotten us to a point where people keep coming and throwing money at the wall and hoping something sticks eventually. And maybe that's actually another reason to speak as to why it's so male dominated, because they're just so much more arrogant and stupid when it comes to making these decisions.
I honestly just think it's like, it's just the way it started, and it's really hard to completely change like cultural norms. Like, that's
Right.
just kind of a silly battle I don't think it'll ever be 50-50.
That part I agree with. What I'm saying,
I don't think 50-50. It's gonna be slow, but that's the thing. I'm like throwing your hands up, be like, we've tried everything. I'm like,
I mean, I just think
really?
I think we're on the trajectory of like more women doing male-dominated things in general, not just poker. But I just feel like it sort of is happening naturally, and like I don't know. I don't know that it's really hard to just like make women want to play poker.
There's stuff you could do though, featuring like the creator game is a really good example. Like WPT is willing to put money into this. Like they sponsored an event, it cost them $55K. They gave 5K buy-ins to 10 people and also a 5K bonus for the winner. Half the table were female. I'm commentating on it. It didn't even occur to me till the end when I'm starting to think about these things. I was like, wow, half the table were female. Yeah. They're all just like ribbing each other and having a good time. And like Alexandra Botez's chat had it open on Twitch. She had 28,000 people watching. They were all being nice to each other. And they're like, wow, poker looks fun. I'm like, doesn't it? I wish it always looked like this. I think featuring that stuff is really good because it gives you a model of like, you can act like this. There's no reason that we're all like these sullen, angry characters at the table. Like you guys, I'm sure have fun. Like I've played with Conrad. MGM is like, you guys are having a good time. I clearly can see you having fun. Like there's no reason why we can't market to women in that way that like, look, we're not all jerks and like, we will have a good time.
That would be good marketing for just anyone, not just
women. That's what I was going to say is I think that's conflating it a little bit because the fact is that's still a massively male dominated audience. And yes, it's great for acquisition as a whole for marketing poker. But I don't think that a woman who's never had any exposure or interest in poker whatsoever looks at something like that and suddenly pulls a total 180 and like finds her way in.
I completely disagree with that. Like you're seeing women playing a game. There's no stigma attached. There's not, oh my God, they're gambling. Shouldn't they be taking care of their children? There's none of that. They're
like
you
they're yourself said you didn't even realize that there was half the table were women.
Because it was so like normal. That's what I'm saying. Like you're like, oh, it's a very normal thing for these women to be playing in this game.
Sure.
Rather than like, you look at Rounders. Like I love Brian Koppelman. I love Rounders. The two female characters, one is the wet blanket girlfriend being like, you shouldn't gamble and just terrible at every turn. And then Petra, who's like, I'm the hot girl that like gives out loans at the cashier. Like that's it. There's no woman playing poker. There's no, oh, I see myself in this role. Like there isn't that. And I do think that matters a lot. Like to take away the stigma.
Kind of the point. That's kind of the point that like I think all of us are trying to demonstrate. Rounders was made in 1998. Landon's never even seen Rounders, so it's not like it's
three times.
It's not like it's a heavy influence on today's acquisition of new players, and the data still remains the same. So it's like we have had a major progressive shift in society as a whole whenever it comes to like making strides against misogyny and disqualifying women from these male dominated arenas and things like that. But the actual interest level hasn't caught up yet. And I'm not disagreeing with you that it won't someday. I'm hopeful that
like
it will.
This is the problem that I see with like people and companies want to like do something and have it be a magic bullet, and it's like, I did this thing, I pressed this button and boom, 100 new women. That's ridiculous. Like that's never going to happen. And I think that some of this stuff might take like 4 or 5 years. Poker Power might reach 1 million women. It might take 5 years, it might take 10 years.
Sure.
I just think that like throwing up our hands and saying nothing is working, nothing has ever worked is like the most defeatist and like depressing attitude. And like that is like, there's no secret me and Daniel Negreanu don't love each other. But that from him was really annoying because I'm like, people listen to you, they care about what you have to say. And you're basically saying, like why try? And like for me, I'm like, that's just super lazy and a bummer. And we have a bunch of people who think it is worth it to try. There's people who are building companies over trying to get women into poker. And you're kind of saying like, it'll never happen. I'm like, why be the wet blanket on this? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't think the stance, I'll separate myself from Negreanu because I don't agree with that, obviously. I don't think the stance is don't try. I think the stance is more so pushing back against the strongly heard voice that says poker isn't trying and that there's this entire untapped market that nobody seems to give a shit about. Because that part I disagree with. Like, I think Poker Power is a great example of people trying. Now, granted, it's female led, and you can make the implication that like they're doing the heavy lifting and men are not picking up or following suit. But I have a high degree of confidence that Poker Power and these other upstarts are going to find collaborations, coordinations, partnerships with major entities moving forward. And that is trying. But if that number doesn't move or doesn't move quickly enough, I think it's very unfair to continually finger wag and say we're not being addressed as a community. There are females here that are just ripe for the picking and ready to come in. It's overlooking that poker as a whole has a tragic acquisition problem. And the model built to bring in new people to this game is fundamentally broken post Black Friday, post Solver Poker. We're in a community that is going to be contracting, not expanding. And
so then they should, instead of our biggest ambassador saying like, it'll never change, why bother? He should be saying, thank you for doing something. No one else is acquiring new users. No one else is bringing in new blood. Like, thanks Poker Power for getting some women in. That should be the message instead of a defeatist attitude. And like, I really don't appreciate that when I see my friends working really hard. I'm pitching to a company. I got hired a year ago. I'm working with like WPT, and it's not easy to say, hey, I want a budget for a thing that won't provide you any money back for a while. That's not easy. I'm not like, they would much rather me have an idea that's like, this will make you millions. And they're listening. I'm working with men who are like, yeah, like that seems like a good idea. Danielle White, the dealer, just had an idea for a women's meetup game where every woman brings someone who's somewhat new to the game. And we play low stakes, and we're going to have incentives, and WP's willing to put money into it, where they're like, yeah, we'll have some like splash pots and things. We'll have gear giveaways and things like that. I had MGM offered. They're like, we'll do it. So like, we're going to see if there's a time we could do it during Ladies Week. That really feels like real support. That's not the lip service that other companies have paid. That's not patching up a really beautiful girl and being like, this is for you, women. I'm like, I'm happy that they're sponsored. It's not for me though. Like, if you patch up Chippendales models, I'll believe you. Like, I don't need to see the wax chest, but I'll believe you that you are trying to market
Melissa made
to me.
that point, and
I was like, "Where's the shirtless man, male stripper
because
tournament?"
It's misguided, but it would be.
But I'm just gross. Like, don't listen to me.
No, I'm also gross, please. But honestly, that would be a really dumb effort. But it would at least be. I'd be like, you tried. Like that 10K to patch up that guy. You tried to get me interested in poker. Like,
no, I disagree though. I disagree because it doesn't actually target women. If anything, like you're trying to target gay men maybe at that point. But
what? Oh my god, a girls and gays tournament sounds so fun.
Like, this is what I think.
That's an idea. Now that's an idea I think we can sink our teeth into.
Yes, girls and gays.
Yeah, but you're very black and white.
I'm not being black and white.
No,
I'm
with
just saying
that
marketing. Marketing tactics as a whole kind of demonstrate that like female-based products are not sold through sex. Like that's just not the highest bar of marketing. So it's like to draw a one-to-one comparison to two very different gender types.
I'm just saying it would have been a thing where I'm like, they're trying. Like, that's what I'm saying. You can't even point to a thing where like they're trying. Like,
that's not fair. You're just trying to find like one-to-one equal apple-to-apple comparisons where it's like, it's going to be much more
one thing, literally one thing. Like, there was stars.
You have one thing. They have ladies events at the World Series. That's a thing.
They make money through that.
So what?
They have seniors events too. They make money.
Why should they be criticized for making money through their marketing efforts?
I'm not criticizing them for offering that.
No, but you're saying it doesn't count.
I'm saying that is not some like, wow, Herculean effort that they're offering a money-making service. Like, this is what I'm saying when people say we've tried everything.
They're offering a money-making service also when they patch up women. What? Right? Like, those women are expected to bring in money based off of their looks. They're going to bring in new acquisitions.
Based off of their looks. Say it again. Based off of their looks. Men are the audience. Men are the target.
Right, because 95+% of this
audience. Yes, it doesn't have to be that way. This is what I'm saying. You're arguing in circles where it's like,
I'm not arguing in circles.
No, you're saying marketing is towards females. And I'm saying
no.
It's not. I'm saying
marketing is towards males.
Yes.
I said that. I said post
He's saying
Black
that
Friday.
Like, if there was a shirtless dealer thing, like that would be marketed. It would be a sex appeal marketing campaign, which is like most effective towards men.
Yeah,
right?
It wouldn't be good, but it would actually be something you could point to and said they spent money trying to attract you.
Why would you call that a win?
I'm not calling it a win. Listen, this is like a toy game kind of. Like, I'm saying that would be a very dumb effort, but it would actually be a spend where you could say they attempted to reach women. All I'm asking is show me where money has been spent to actually reach women in poker.
But I have. There was years of propping Annette Oberstedt up as the next Tom Dwan. There were years spent with Annie Duke being the head of or the face of Ultimate Bet.
I have a new question then. Since Landon was born.
This is what you keep
Pre-post
tuning
Landon
out.
born
I'm
era.
telling you that post Black Friday, as the market shrunk, operators said, okay, we did 10 years of testing and women were not responsive to our marketing efforts. So we are going to instead hone in on the market that we've established. This is how everything works. When we run a training site, we know what our target audience is. It's 30 to 40 something year old white men in the Midwest. We don't suddenly start targeting like golfers in the Northeast who have zero overlap with our audience, right?
But you've also said there's a major acquisition problem in poker. So we're targeting men, and that's not working either. So should we give up on that? Should we all just like stop and we all play with people we already know and never have anyone new?
No,
like there's no reason not to try it, is what I'm saying. There's new ways to try.
Well, there is a reason to not
try. And there's
try.
more women in like executive roles in poker than there ever have been.
There's a big reason not to try. It's a huge spend.
Yeah.
And the cost is high. So should we give up? No, of course not. But marketing efforts are going to get more and more and more streamlined
it's super
to
easy
reduce
to
the
market.
cost.
This is where I'm saying, like, I'm working for a company that's willing to put some money behind it. It's not as much as you would think. It's not crazy. And it's like the women who've grown groups, grassroots efforts, are doing all the legwork. We just have to give them an assist. It would mean a lot if you went, okay, they're having a huge World Poker Association, Women's Poker Association event right now. The winner of it can have a Solve for Y seat. Even just doing that.
I did this with Poker Power. I told
Yeah,
Schwan
that's
on air,
great.
like I would love to do anything with them, and I think supporting these groups are massive.
Yeah,
but
there needs to be
you
more of
have to
that.
recognize that they're not crossing the barrier of entry. Nothing about Poker Power empowers these women to have more expendable income. Nothing about Poker Power is going to remove the misogyny in live poker. So there are still these massive
All right,
barriers.
so two things, I could respond to both of those. The first one, they're targeting a specific type of woman who is in corporate America. They're targeting women who will have expendable income and who have type A personalities. That's a lot of like what they're doing. I think that's going to be extremely effective because these are people who are not going to quit very easily.
Sure.
I still think we shouldn't haze people who are new at poker, but if that's how it is and it's hard to change that quickly, these women are going to be able to withstand
right,
that.
like they're going to cherry pick the best of the best.
100%. What
Sure.
was your second point? Because I want to shoot that too.
Well, I mean, you already did. It's one and the same. I'm basically saying like you're not going to change the environment overnight. With misogyny.
My point was when people make the point to just talk about live poker, I don't really understand why we're making that distinction. More women in poker, it's okay if they're playing online. Like I just don't want there to be like a stigma around it.
But that's kind of a whole separate conversation where it's like online is not on the uptick. Like there's a big.
If their goal is to have more expendable income, probably live is the way.
No, I think that women should just get to use RTA. I feel like
no, but
Wait,
that's the
we
other
do.
thing.
You don't have it? I'll send it to you.
That's the other thing. I think that if we were to filter data for sustainable stakes where you can begin to make a living, I think the fall off goes from like if it's say 92-8 right now, or say online is like 80-20, I think it drops into like the low single digits. So like once you break like the $100 buy-in plus, I would imagine that it falls somewhere to like the 98-2 type of split. And this is a lot of what we see in the YouTube audiences. Like when you're talking about all of the content that's out there that is, both entertaining, but also meant to improve people's ability to win. Those audiences are like 98-2, 99-1 across the board. And as much as like I want to support groups like Poker Power, and I do support them, I think like the bigger thing that Poker Power accomplishes long term is not growing the game of poker for women necessarily, but more so opening doors for women in the STEM industries and poker and chess and like all of these competitive arenas that are heavily male dominated. I think that what ends up happening is like we see some of the best and brightest come from that group of 1 million. And we do see systematic change over the long run based off the fact that they're able to elevate. That's a totally different conversation though from what can poker do better to acquire new users, specifically female.
Right. That's like within poker. It's not really like addressing the acquisition of women outside of poker who like just aren't interested or they don't know how to start or whatever. It's just sort of like, but on the same token, it's also not being advertised to like anybody outside of poker right now.
Right.
So like maybe if we were in an era where there were advertisements on TV and stuff, I'm sure we would see some like badass women in the commercials and whatever, but we're just not having commercials anymore.
I kind of think black men or not just men, black men and women as well have the same exact problem kind of.
There's fewer black African American people in poker than
that was way better way to say that. Good job,
Wow.
Berkey. Oh my God.
I was reading an article, I think it was on Card Player. I can't remember the woman's name who wrote it, but she basically gave the breakdown of female participation in poker and then minority participation in poker. I wish I would have cited it, but I just happened to glance real quickly before stream. But basically it showed that even the ladies event has decreased in numbers year over year, with the exception of 2019, which was the year they allowed one rebuy. So there was a massive spike in 19, but it's likely because
Wait, there was rebuys the last ladies event.
Yeah, a couple of them. They've had one rebuy allowed. There
I
are
know, 'cause I
definitely
rebought.
yeah, it was one rebuy,
one rebuy
in
allowed.
2019.
There are certain things that have happened though that like I think that actually there's like always a correlation causation problem.
Sure.
And like we all speculate from our own worldviews what's happening. Part of that though is like one or two times the monster stack overlapped and a lot of people get through, and women are more likely to play that event. There are a lot of women in that event.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite days because like I bagged that. And I was so sad missing the ladies event, even though I play all these other events, that I was just walking through the room and I'd be like, you have a fire in your eyes. Can I take a piece? Like I'm buying pieces of like everyone's grandma.
I used to do that
made
with the
no
seniors
dollars.
event.
I had very bad reads of like
Yeah.
who I thought looked like a good player. But that I think I spent $1,000 buying pieces of people just because I had FOMO so bad because
Yeah,
that
sweat
event is so
equity.
unique. Yeah.
Yeah.
are there any,
It actually did demonstrate that there was growth in the main event, but it was corollary to the numbers just rising. So like the percentage of women was still relatively the same, but there was more volume of females playing the main event, which is good. Though it probably has some byproduct to the fact that like 10K is not worth what 10K used to be worth, so the barrier of entry may not be quite as high. But the whole point I was trying to make was that when you got to the minorities, well, specifically African Americans and Latinos, I think that it was like, if I recall the stat correctly, and I could be wrong, but I think half as many African Americans play poker than women, and then only like 1% of the community is Latino. So
Really?
it does kind of beg the question too of like, and I get why it's because, you know, we're talking about a whole gender rather than a race, but nobody talks about not doing enough to target minorities whenever it comes to bringing in the new acquisitions. And again, like I'm going to keep doubling down on this because I think it's worth it. It's like we have a decade and a half of data that just says our target audience is X. And golf is like the same way, unfortunately, right? It's very exclusionary. And, you know, for a long period of time, it felt like the game was going to die, and they have to do a lot of unique things to make sure that doesn't happen. And then Tiger Woods happens. But like we had Phil Ivey, and there was just no.
Hey, did he die or something? We still have Phil Ivey.
What is he, chopped liver?
Well, he kind of got too big for us. It's
still
like you throw him in a
winning
200,
stuff.
400 game, he doesn't even give a shit. It's
Yeah.
like, but he's not marketable anymore. Is my
He's
whole
also
point.
not playing in the States anymore.
Yeah, he's just not marketable. And I guess I think he's a good example of why that method doesn't work. I think Annette and Vanessa Selbst and players of that ilk are good examples of why it's not as simple as just putting somebody who looks like
I found
you.
Annette Overstad and Vanessa Selbst to be inspiring.
Sure,
when I was
sure.
when I was starting to play, I was like, this is pretty cool. Her little,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I covered my cards with a Post-it and won this 180 man. Now I'm like, it was a 180 man, but still,
Yeah, but
like,
still it's insane.
She's
It's
showing
impossible.
like the power of position and that like, oh, my cards don't even matter. It was really badass.
I think role models are really important.
What'd you
and
say?
that role models are
Yeah.
very important.
So I think they're incredibly important, and this is where I was trying to steer the conversation. I think that as an acquisition model, that doesn't work. But I think for retention purposes, it's absolutely mandatory, right? And I think that you're absolutely correct. We don't have female ambassadors anymore. Not post Black Friday, right? Like Chrissy's really the only one that we've seen
Jen
rise.
Shahadi does work for Stars. Like she really,
I thought
she
she
was
was
a
done with
Mind Sport. She was a Mind Sport ambassador for Stars.
See, so this shows you like how little that's amplified. I thought she was done with Stars. I thought it's been
I'm
years.
pretty sure she's still doing no, because like she's in Pennsylvania. I can
No,
look at
she's
her
still with
Twitter
Stars.
profile right now. She's
Okay,
still
yeah.
Stars.
See,
Yeah. Look, she's in a market. She's targeting Pennsylvania.
right.
Now,
So she's not a part of Rest of the World
But
anymore.
I think she actually does a lot of work. I think she does a really good job. as a pro. I think there's less, obviously, like if we're not having online poker going in the US, they can't just be throwing money at women to be promoting it. I understand that. I do think that like people in general are willing.
Everybody knows Darren is BetMGM ambassador.
Ambassadors are willing to work a lot more than they used to. Like on Black Friday, it was like, before Black Friday, they're like, here, wear a patch, be in a tournament, $10,000, go get them. There was nothing like that. Like they didn't have to do anything. Now I'm looking at like Ashley Sleeth and Jamin Burton. I'm like, they're hustling really hard. They're vlogging and they're trying to get opportunities. I think people now, like, they're going to be expected to write some articles and do some stuff. So I'm like, I think there is probably, if they used to fund people in a way that didn't work, it might have been because they're not optimizing the way they use these people.
The irony is that if you were a 20-something white male pre-Black Friday, all of those responsibilities did fall on you. You had to write articles for Bluff or Card Player. You had to be, you had to separate it was so homogenous. That you had to find a way to differentiate yourself in order to garner the favor of
Dude, I'm telling you, the plight of the young white male is very, very dire. I feel like we should talk more about that.
You heard me say the irony of it,
I'm
right?
kidding you.
Okay? Like, in no way, shape, or form am I trying to paint a picture of like, woe is me. But that's kind of what I'm getting at is like, you're right. Back then, just being different was enough. And now it's kind of the opposite. Now the homogeny is what's being sold. And like I said, everybody knows Darren Elias is the BetMGM ambassador. I can't imagine everybody knows Jen Shahade is the Stars PA ambassador.
Well, you're not on the East Coast. She's been doing it forever. Like she makes herself known as like she is.
No. I'm not saying this is a Jen problem.
I'm saying she's a good role model for people who are paying attention, and that would be younger women who are trying to get into the game. They would be paying attention.
I'm trying to make your point where he is very amplified across. Like there is no BetMGM in Nevada. Everybody in Nevada knows he's the ambassador, though. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make is like Stars isn't putting the same effort behind a Jen for PA.
And like, I don't know if I can speak to that or not. This is just us both with our like.
Yeah, I mean, it's my anecdotal
it's what you're
experience.
paying attention to or not. But like, I think that back in the day, Stars had a pretty good model for marketing to women. And I think they let it all burn when they switched management. And I want to revive some of that stuff. Like with WPT Global, like I just think we should take some of their good ideas and use them. Women's Sunday with leaderboards and like basically steps to get to a higher stake. You can see a path to going to some amazing event, to winning your seat to PCA.
I think
you
that's
felt
what
like it was possible. And I think that there's times where like, we don't need to market this game and say you're going to become a professional and be super rich. I think that's false for most new players. It's going to be really hard to be a new player and be making 100K within a few years. Like I think that's difficult. You don't have to sell them the glamour stuff, but you can say here's a way to have a hobby that can make you some money, make you some friends, great social atmosphere. There's a reason to do this besides just I'm going to get rich and famous from this. And I think we should be marketing more towards that because I think having it be like a fun social atmosphere is important to women, on average more than to men. And I think that like, I told you stories about my mom where like I teach her how to play. She's playing $2 sit and goes on Stars. Go to put her in 1-2. I'm like, how did you do? End of the session, there are like, it's like half an hour of stories about people at the table. And then she's like, oh yeah, and I lost like $50 anyway, and just like walks away. And I'm like, I said, how did you do? Like, did you win? And she was like, who fucking cares? Like, here's all these things that happen to me and people I talk to. And I think there's something there that like we should realize that we have to nurture that if we want casual players to come try it out, catch the bug, get inspired, and do more.
Yeah, I think that's what this conversation ultimately boils down to is that there are no clear incentives for women who have zero interest in poker right now because previously the incentive would have been money, right?
Why do we need women who aren't interested in poker to play
poker? The same reason we need men who are not interested in poker. If we're talking growth,
right?
We need people who don't have an interest to come into the market.
Okay, yeah.
Need to tap the untapped.
And right now that incentive is lacking for both male and female, right? Because money was the big carrot on a string before, whereas like this is an easy way to make a hard living. It's really just getting
people who aren't interested in poker, not necessarily women.
Think about what esports did.
Yeah.
Right? Like they were able to gamify something or sportify something in a way where it was no longer this like insulated community
it's a big spectator sport. There's a betting market.
Right. Yeah. Right. All of this ripple effect took place and the market grew tremendously. Right. We don't really have that in poker. And that's okay for now. I guess like that's the whole point that I'm trying to make.
We need a side betting market.
We definitely need that, but it's very difficult until we can like uniformly
give us side betting, give us a big fantasy thing.
But it's hard. Like it's very
Almost
difficult to do with
impossible.
even just late registration existing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how would you ever make your bets prior to registration closing if the window of time is like 0?
Yeah, they'd have to be mostly like prop bets, I guess. Like,
Yep.
Or day 2
someone
bets.
to win
You could do like day 2
Yeah.
and beyond.
or like
So they could create a betting market
top
overnight.
10 chip stack at end of day 1 type
Yeah, you
stuff.
could do props like that.
Yeah.
Are there any industries that are female dominated that are looking for more like men to be involved in them, or no? Is that not a thing?
Yeah,
That's
things
a
like
good-
nursing, things
That's
like
a good question because my
what
initial
if-
response was like, why would they want that?
Let's just say, for example, like is using like a makeup artistry a bad example?
No, that's probably a good one.
No,
Right?
there's probably like
Nursing.
So in that regard, are there any actions being used for more males to be interested in that kind of stuff?
that
Oh,
would be
no.
helpful too. Like nursing is a good example because
Mm-hmm.
especially during COVID, I'm sure there was like a short supply of nurses.
I'm pretty
And
sure
nursing-
well, this is every industry, but I think male nurses, like they get paid more,
I was
or
just about to
they're
say
more
that.
wanted. They get like higher bonus, like
They
signing
get bonuses. They get
signing
paid
bonus.
more. I was in
right.
nursing.
So there's a
Yeah, for
monetary
sure.
incentive, and that
Right.
goes back to like what I was saying
That's
Yeah.
bullshit.
with regard to pulling people in. It's like right now there's no great incentive, but the thing that we can address right away, and I guess like this is all a giant conversation to basically just say like, stop shouting at windmills, everybody. We're having 2 different conversations that are passing in the night. Everybody who's offering solutions, I feel like generally don't know what problem they're trying to solve. So the idea that we can offer incentives to those who already have an interest is something that I'm 100% on board for. And I'm definitely behind it. I think we should be promoting female ambassadors in that regard. I think we should be, again, aligning with groups like Poker Power. I think we should be taking on initiatives, expanding female or ladies only events. Like, and this is difficult because like I think even women are a little bit divided on that topic.
Yeah.
But like, who cares? Just throw shit against the wall and see what sticks. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, do some more research because that's the thing. Like Thomas Keeling and I have a lot of that planned. Like we have promo codes and things, or when we're doing stuff for WPT, like what works and what doesn't. Do we actually acquire new users? Is this something where they spend their ticket and never come back again? We're going to be doing things like that. I just don't believe that there's been a real effort made, and I'm going to keep trying, and I'll run my head into the wall, and that's fine.
Yeah,
if this never works.
I guess I just wanted to be clear that like the effort is to actually just see growth through retention, right? It's to make sure that women who enter the arena stay in the arena as long as we can possibly capture them.
Yeah, like this is where when you're saying you're trying to capture people with no interest, that's impossible. You can't make me like something that I have zero.
Right.
I'm not even.
I don't
gonna
think that that's
look at
understood to
commercial.
the general
But
populace.
I'm
though.
saying
gonna
there's a lot of
start,
people who are
like,
like minimally
loving
interested
NASCAR.
in it. What'd you say?
I'm not going to start loving NASCAR. Even if
Exactly, you
You
cannot
show me
get me-
like a cool woman doing that. I just don't care.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like,
but
Yeah, but that's why I don't think it'll be 50-50. I don't want to ignore the fact. I think there probably are some biological differences. I think more so there's societal differences.
Agreed,
There's
totally
pressures
agreed.
to do certain things. There's also obvious things biologically, like women will take a break to have kids and a family,
Sure.
and then maybe not return to poker for a really long time. And then you're out of the game. You're like, do I want to do this anymore? I know that this happens to people. It's not going to be 50-50, but to say, oh, 95-5 sounds about right is bullshit. Like, if I think that we can really get it higher than that, and
Yeah.
I think that women's groups are already doing that. Support them. Like, put some free shit into them. Like, try to court some more people for Solve for Why. Give a discount. I've coached women who are very low stakes at way less money than I coach guys. There are ones I didn't collect money from. I was like,
Yeah.
fuck it. Like, go play. Like,
Yeah.
there's things you can do if you really care that aren't, like, the biggest consideration isn't what's my bottom line for this. If you really care.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying is, like, companies should be supporting these groups that are doing all the effort on their own. They really do just need like a little boost, and they need to not be told it's not worth it by their biggest ambassadors.
I'm in complete agreement with all of this. I think maybe I'm being a little bit pedantic, but it's just altering the conversation to steps that can be taken in order to grow within the current environment, right? Because I think so often the point gets lost whenever we start to manufacture this idea of like, oh, there's billions of women on this
Who
planet.
really thinks that they're going to tap this? Like, someone's gonna be like, "Oh my God, I've never seen a playing card before." Like, that's not a thing. Like, that's not something that's gonna happen. No one is like
That's
that.
the majority of the
disillusioned.
rhetoric that I'm seeing.
It's crazy though. I think people exaggerate too much. I'm
Yeah.
very, very guilty of that, and I
Sure.
think some people take it at face value and go,
Yeah.
"Oh, you want it to be 50-50? I never will be." I'm like, 50-50
Not even 50-50 or any
Yeah.
arguments like that, but just more so that they're basically saying like 95% of women are just sitting out, and that entire group can be captured. And I think that there's a really strong argument to say like, no, only a tiny sliver of that
a
entire
tiny sliver
group.
is still a lot of people.
What do you think
Yeah.
would be a good ratio or a goal?
It's
Not-
just a guess. Like, this is what I'm saying. I'm like, this
I guess
is
what-
always going to
like,
be a
I thought
guess.
goal, like, but what would like I guess the goal to say,
Andrew
we
Barber-
succeeded.
20-80 would
80-20,
be,
yeah.
like, I feel like
75-25.
childcare and less disposable income and a bunch of societal bullshit is going to stand in the way. And I don't think it can be like much
Right.
better than that, but like that's a huge increase of new
Oh
players.
yeah, I think
And,
if it
like,
went from
even-
95-5 to
Yeah, I think that
80-20,
can
be like we
happen. I
did
don't-
something right. for
Yeah,
sure.
Well, there are a few things to consider in this. So first of all, Andrew Barber posed that question to Jen Jacobs, and basically said, if every stigma was removed, if it were an optimal world, what do you think the ultimate ratio would be? And she kind of skirted the question and said, like, well, you could just never remove all of the
I don't
barriers.
think it would be very different.
What?
I don't think it would be very different. Like if everyone acted perfectly at the table, you're saying?
Yeah.
and if women
Yeah, I
made the
don't-
same
Well, I
amount of
think-
money as men and
Yes.
had as much
Okay.
financial
Like he's
control.
basically saying if there
yeah.
were no difference in barrier of entry, but the barrier of entry is still consistent, what do you think the ultimate ratio would be? And she kind of skirted the question, and then later, maybe it was Schwan talking to Liv, and Liv kind of said, "Yeah, I think we can do better than 95-5, but anybody who thinks that it can get to 75-25 is kind of like dreaming." I think that there are a few things to acknowledge within the framework of those two conversations. Number one, if it becomes a fool's errand to shout at windmills for a problem that you recognize is at a global level and can't be solved. So in other words, it becomes a fool's errand to say like, you're not inclusive enough. And then when someone says, okay, well, if we could strip away everything that's preventing women from coming into the game now, what do you ultimately think the ratio would be? And the response being, you're not inclusive enough.
Yeah, but that's not what we're saying.
No.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Now you're exaggerating.
No,
Or
I'm
not saying 50-50.
I'm
saying 80-20.
not throwing you into this at all. I'm
Yeah.
I'm framing it around what Jen and Andrew were talking
Okay.
about. And then secondarily, when Liv is kind of making the point that there's just an inherent selection bias taking place here, saying that 75-25 isn't taking place, I think what's underneath those numbers that's not really being divulged as to why 75-25 is lofty and maybe even 80-20 is lofty is that the vast majority of those players who make up the percentage of people playing poker, or the ratio, if you will, the vast majority of the females who are bringing that ratio up are going to be at the absolute lowest stake entry level position, or not position, but buy-ins or whatever. And across the board, that ecosystem goes broke a lot. So there's massive turnover at that level. And the challenge becomes, for men, that turnover is repeatable because the interest level in poker stays relatively consistent because it's a boy thing, quote unquote, right? For women, if you ever do get, say, 20% interested and it doesn't shift that narrative hard enough to where it's an inclusive thing instead of a boy thing, now that turnover just crushes the industry again, right? And the turnover is inevitable. The game's too hard, not for women or men, just in general. The game is too hard. There's always going to be massive churn at the bottom level, right? So I think that that's kind of Liv's greater point, is that's the selection bias at play. Even if we could get the number up, once that first wave of churn comes through, we're going to see it get cut massively.
But okay, so that's also in the camp of just like, it's just the way it is.
Well, to some degree, that's what I was doubling down on what Jen was saying too, right? Whenever Andrew says like, in an optimal world, what do you think the ratio would be? And she kind of replies with, it's just the way it is. Like, yeah, there are certain factors that are going to be not impossible to overcome, but are going to be massive challenges that a lot of companies are going to decide it's not worth the spend to try to beat their head against the wall.
I don't know. I think that I've seen a lot of men go broke and their buddies help them and back them and let them live in their grindhouse and do all that. I think that for every new woman we add to the game, there's more of a chance of that, of like an actual community being built.
Yeah, I
where
agree
it's
with
like,
that.
hey, you're low. Like I have an example right now where I'm like helping a little bit, a friend who's really not having a good time. And it's just kind of, I think that my friends would do that for me too right now.
So you think like the churn will?
I think the churn will
ultimately
slow down.
reduce?
I think that this is a thing that will snowball on itself. I really do. And like I'm not optimistic about anything. Like this
Sure.
is where I'm like, this is why I'm like, I'm not used to this argument where I'm like, no, things are going to be good.
What
But
I do agree with is that I think the elevation aspect will improve. So I disagree that the churn will slow because I just think the game has a way of weeding people out in general. Even if they are able to find funding, it may deter it a little bit.
I'm going to push back on that too, because I think that I agree with you. Like it's very brutal when you first start playing. You don't even know if you have a win rate yet. And you're sitting there being like, I hope I do, because I'm going to sit here a bunch of hours and I might have less money at the end if I don't. A lot of these people are coming in better equipped. Like some of the poker power people I'm watching, my housemate Lisa is coaching the like beginners where it's like, this is a flop or whatever. They're being spoon fed stuff that like is very expensive to learn on their own. If you sit down, you're just like, oh, a card game, you're screwed, right?
Yeah.
So like they are actually coming in a little bit more prepared. It sucks we don't have online poker everywhere in every state.
That's also the
'cause-
problem that
Yeah.
they don't sit down and just say, "Oh, poker." Like there is no like, there's nothing for them to get into it.
Yeah.
Like you just walk by it.
You guys have more of like a buddy system. It's like one of your boys has a bachelor party. He's like, we're going to play poker tonight. You'd be like, okay, I'll go play poker with you. Like that isn't happening as much with women, but it can. Like that Daniel White has a good idea.
That's a great idea.
The bring a buddy to your cash game
Yeah.
kind of thing. And like you'll be incentivized
I mean,
to.
I brought my friend who had never played poker in a casino before when she came to visit, and it was her idea, and she was like, I want to go play. And then she had a great time even though she lost. She had a great time the first night, and then wanted to go back the second night.
That's great.
She loved it.
Yeah, and that's
I'm
like
sure
that's
every
where
time she comes, she'll.
That's
wanna
where we're
play.
talking about retention, where it's like
Yeah.
make the people already in the game happy to be there.
Yeah, agreed.
Like address things like Ebony Kenny said, make it a better environment. Come up with solutions like text messaging the floor people for help, things like that, so that when Melissa's friend comes to town, she doesn't go like, God, I'm gonna bring you to this cesspool, and she's
Also,
instead like,
me
it'll be
being there
fun.
helped too, because I obviously like am looking out for her. So if anything weird or feisty was happening, I mean, but I know she can hold her own. She's fine.
That happened when I
is-
brought my mom to play. She
Yeah.
sat at 1-2 and a guy insulted her, and
Yeah.
I left my game and I sat to his left and I was like 3-betting. I'm like, fuck you, fuck
Yeah.
you, like every single hand. And he's like, what did I do to you? Like, but I was like, you were nasty to my mom. He
Fuck with my moms.
Yeah, and he's sitting there with headphones
bet
and
you.
sunglasses at 1-2. I was like, oh, I hate this guy.
Yeah.
But like it's like there is a buddy system kind of like that where it's like if you're throwing these people to the wolves a little bit, like it's cool that you're there with her.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
a quick question. Do you think that the populace of like the 1-2 or lower stakes live is on the aggregate happier or less happy? Like over under 50% happy or sad? It
depends.
Most of the
Hold on.
one sec. If most of the entry people are sad and mad and angry, why would people that are finding it new want to continually play the game?
It depends heavily on if they are recreational or not. The ones who are
100%.
recreational playing those stakes are very happy. The ones who are not recreational are just they're
So-
just sitting there not playing hands.
Would you
so
say
I don't
that
know.
most people playing those stakes, like 1-2, are playing recreationally or not? From your- like
Most
your
are
experience?
recreational.
Most are so most of the time it is fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. But
I
the
don't know though.
issue-
When me and Conrad are at the table, it's always fun.
Yeah, because the issue would be
So-
like the bad actors are the one that are skewing people away. Because if your first experience is getting yelled at by someone like, "Oh, you
Oh,
shouldn't
don't get
play
me
this
wrong.
hand,"
Don't get me wrong.
There are the
Don't get me
tables with
wrong.
people.
There's
I don't
one
wanna
of
play this
there's one of those at like every other table.
Yeah.
But like the problem is, I feel like they come out of the woodworks when like women come around or something along the lines. Like they
They
won't
start
do this to like
peacocking
eight
and-
guys at the table. They're not gonna say shit. But like
Yeah.
somebody that they can single out,
Yeah.
they just think they're the fucking.
Because then
man.
they're like, oh well, that means I'm not getting singled out.
We have to be
fucking
very cognizant of anecdotal evidence though. Like a lot of this is just, yes, of course it's happening at scale to some degree, but it's also like perception based. So I do think the Danielle White idea is very good. I don't think it's scalable though, or I'm not convinced it's scalable. Like basically, if somebody pitched me that same idea for men, I would just be like, silly, right? And to be fair, like I'm kind of poo-pooing it a little bit more than it should be, because I do think it's a good idea, especially given that there are these disenfranchised women in the game and men are not disenfranchised. So that's why I think it would be a bad idea in the inverse. But like even meetup games as a whole haven't scaled. Like they just don't scale. They make people like Nemi and Owen.
It's what's lovely about them. It's not some big corporate thing. It's like a actual, like you sit down with someone that you follow and that you like, and they make you feel like you're friends with them.
Yeah, it's a
like
great retention model.
Brad and Andrew are amazing at that. I feel like Ashley and Jamin would be amazing at that.
Yep.
I think this like buddy system thing is a really cool idea. I think these people are going to sit with real poker players who are having fun and have a good first experience.
Yeah.
I think we can get to 10% in a year. If you told me I have to get one woman to play poker this year, like that will want to play somewhat like on the regular, I could easily do that. I could coach someone to be decent at 1-2, to like find the best games. Here, look at 2+2. Here's a resource. Here's like solve for Y. Here's upswing. You can do that. Like if I felt good about doing that, I would do that more. I tend to talk to people who are already interested in poker. If I felt like this was an amazing, welcoming environment with a lot of upside, I would pressure my mom to play more instead of going to blackjack, you know?
And that's kind of the unspoken problem, is that I think all of us who have been around the game for a long period of time understand that growth is going to be very difficult, and that this isn't something we would do again if we had to start tomorrow.
I would. I was a lawyer before. That was terrible. Like this is where I'm like, I think having a shit job before or something that makes you feel like your soul is dying makes it easier to stomach poker through even some of the bad stuff. And some of the harassment, like I'm not gonna make a big deal about harassment. I think I've run pretty good. I've had a couple really bad scares where I'm like, what is my life? But also, I think on average, I am like smart mouthed enough where a person isn't going to like go after me. I feel like Melissa is similar. It's like, I think we probably experience slightly less of the like real terrible people because you are clearly comfortable and you're confident and you have a network.
Right.
You know
I know
floor.
people in the room.
Yep.
I know the floor, and so they're just like, oh, well, this is actually not my territory. Like,
yeah, he's like, oh shit, I'm actually gonna get fucked up if I talk to this girl like this. Yeah, and like I think we need a little bit like more of that. It's like that's why I said it's really important to get even one more woman in every time you can, because it will snowball. It will feel like a more comfortable. I felt like an alien the first time I played in a casino. There were no women. Like literally, it was a cocktail waitress. I'm like, hello, help me. Like, and also it's like you're gonna suck when you start playing, and everyone's gonna notice you suck because you're new and they've never seen you before. Yeah. And if you're a dude who looks like every dude, you won't really be noticed. You can play like shit, and they're not gonna be like talking about you when you leave.
Like if people that are like quote unquote skilled at poker see someone do something that's like not so skilled, you don't say anything. You just like take a mental note, and you kind of maybe like like you don't do,
unless they fold a straight flush.
Right, unless they do whatever the fuck. Anyways, like you don't actively go out of your way to make the person feel worse. I don't understand why people do this.
Yeah, but people will do that.
Some guys really hate losing to girls. Like I was just in Florida where I was kidding around with Berkey because he was like, the lowest stakes are always going to be the people who have a chip on their shoulder who are going to treat you the worst. I'm like, yeah, or any stake in Florida. like every guy, it was just a weird feeling. Like I would win a pot and the person would be like, meh. And I'm like, what? I didn't do anything. I'm also friendly and drunk. Like leave me alone. Like it was a weird feeling, and it did remind me of like 10 years ago when I would play, and I just like felt out of place, and I felt like I didn't belong, and I felt they're like hating me, and that kind of feeling.
It's so like, table dependent.
Yeah.
Throwing a monkey wrench into this.
No, it's all Florida.
Did you know that they had a male topless dealers tournament?
Yes.
Yeah, and it got obliterated.
Exactly.
Women hated it.
That's right. I've been waiting to say this for like 20 minutes.
How about this? They wear tops, but they don't wear bottoms.
I don't think you're getting what you asked for here. You have not seen enough ugly penises in your day. That's abundantly clear.
I have a really good idea. This is an actionable idea. So remember when Title IX was enacted and it was supposed to put more money into women's sports?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And instead they started stripping the lesser male sports so that the ratio is better?
Yeah.
Like Rutgers just lost their crew team temporarily and fencing because they were like, oh wait, we needed the ratio to match.
Correct.
So let's not give women more money. Let's take away money from men. I think me and Melissa should go around and harass the men into quitting. And that'll make the percentage a little bit better.
Right. If you just make all of the angry men leave,
sexual
then all the
harassment.
women will proportionally come back.
To be fair, you don't really have to do that. Angry men in poker have a very,
Yeah.
very short shelf
yeah.
life.
They're out
They are
soon.
not winning anytime
There's a
soon.
reason they're
They're
angry.
gods.
Except for Helmy to a 16
Drive real quick.
bracelet.
Sure.
That's
Let
true.
them lose their money, and then they'll just be
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been a riveting conversation. I've greatly enjoyed it. I would love to end on something
You gotta see Newt.
something new-ish.
He's a rag doll.
Oh, this poor dog.
Poor dog.
He is
Rich dog.
he is a
Rich
grown-ass
dog.
man
Rich dog.
getting
That dog-
lapped
Nah, he's
into his
still a
mother.
baby.
Yeah,
he's
he
still
looks
a baby.
so miserable. Look at this poor dog.
Oh, it's just a little.
Poor Nude. He
He's
just
like
wants to take a
asleep.
nap.
He's asleep already.
Yeah, of course he is.
Yep.
Yeah, come to mother's bosom. I hope that everybody enjoyed the conversation. I hope that we made it a little bit more clear where everybody stands in all of this and that we're able to actually move the needle a little bit. Moving forward, again, I'm not entirely sure what we as a community can do other than just be better, be less assholes. But, maybe the bigger entities take note. Maybe we do start seeing the Poker Power sponsorships roll out or collaborations or whatever. I am interested to see a lot of these ideas that you're working with WPT on start to roll out. I think that they're very
And the
easy to
teaser,
support.
We're gonna have a big ladies event, a big one.
Nice.
Good one. It's gonna be worth it, and we're gonna support it and make sure people satellite in and have a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think anything that can have monetary incentives behind it are just always gonna do a lot more heavy lifting than things that are feel good stories, right?
Yeah.
it's just
I
kind
like
of the
those
nature
too,
of it.
though. There's nothing
of
wrong
course,
with
of course, we love
There's
it.
nothing wrong with a tweet once in a while where a guy's like, "Man, there are more women in poker," and "Oh wow, there's some crushers." Like people who actually actively support women who are winning.
Yeah.
It's great. I notice it. I know people notice it.
I think that stuff's great. I thought Nimi had a pretty good idea, but I also think that there are a lot of holes in it. So his idea was basically take 3 well-known, established, winning female poker players.
Winning? Fuck. Oh.
Game's out.
You're out. It's fine.
You won 2 rings this year.
It's a
double
tough
ring.
qualifier. And basically create a community out of them where they start vlogging. The problem with this idea is that if you put the onus for them to do the work, if you put the onus of work on them, it's going to be very difficult for them to still be winning. I know how difficult it is to try to split your time between creating content, playing poker
Yeah.
at a high level, and also being scrutinized under the microscope 24/7. Nobody's going to sign up for that gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what's been happening
Unless
at
it
the
pays
bar?
really, really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you understand how it is. And even if you can alleviate some of the pressure by just having an editing team and a film crew and everything else, follow them and create the vlogs and stuff like that for them. I think the problem is there's still a lot of overhead where you need to you basically want to create an echo chamber without creating an echo chamber. And that's the biggest challenge. So you want to create this women's only club, call it, or community or whatever, that's going to grow from within. But the problem is if you do that, then you have this 3-person echo chamber where they're not getting nearly enough outside influence of how the game's moving, how the theory's changing, and all that other stuff. But I do think it has legs. I think it's the right idea. I brought that up because of the idea of a feel-good story. And I think those are good examples of how you can curate them, but they're very, very fucking expensive, right? When you start to go the filming, documentary, vlogging route, to do it consistently is expensive. But we do have some people who are represented in that arena. Ashley Sleeth, as you've mentioned a few times, she's new to the vlogging scene. She's already starting to blow up, has over 20K followers. Pokerface Ash, another one. She's a former Solve for Why attendee. We actually have a shockingly high female ratio. We're 75-25, 80-20-ish, depending on whether you're looking at live or online. And I don't really know why. I've never really been able to put my finger on it other than I guess you could say the sample is relatively small. If you're looking at people who've attended the academy, you're looking at sub 200 people. But in any event, there is these subsections that we can curate and grow and, kind of water, if you will. I'm still not convinced we get to 10 or 20.
Yeah, we're getting to 20.
anytime in the near future. But God damn it, I'm rooting for it.
Yeah, Bitcoin might go to 20.
He said Bitcoin might go to 20.
Yeah.
Wow, that could actually adjust the percentages a lot because more men are in crypto. If Bitcoin
Yeah.
just tanks, it might be at 50-50 because there's going to be like 12 men rolled for 1-2.
Yep. There's a lot more people in those 1-2 streets.
Sad and accurate.
There'll be so many more people playing, so many people just
No,
going
but then
down.
they'll be mad because they have to play lower.
Yeah,
Good.
Oh, they'll be
bad.
so mad.
it would be so bad.
So mad.
So mad, so
So bad.
mauled, so bald.
That's going to wrap it for us. We have a new episode of Poker Out Loud out on Solve for Why TV today. If you want to go check that out, head to solveforwhy.io. Matt Hunt also has a new course out, MTT Exploits 2.0. This is focusing specifically on pre-flop exploits, so you can check that out. The first 2 episodes are up. The next 3 will be out, I believe, midweek this week. I think Wednesday is when they're set to launch. Finally, we do have new Academy dates set for August 16th to the 19th. That'll be a Poker Out Loud style Academy. 2 days of gameplay, 2 days of theory. The days of gameplay will be roughly 8 hours in length. You'll get the game footage to keep and study indefinitely. Very, very powerful learning tool, in my opinion. First one went great. So if you want to be a part of that, head over to academy.solveforwhy.io. All these links are in the show notes below. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
it was a
Jamie.
pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Jamie.
I appreciate you taking it easy on me from a
Oh
roasting
no, I've
perspective.
been like texting you the whole time terrible things. I just didn't want to say them out loud.
Again, much obliged.
you,
Thanks for bringing Newt. He's welcome to stay. We can have a shop dog moving forward. That would be great.
Wait, should we get Nude on one more time?
Yeah, let's get Newt. Come here, Nudie. Oh, run. Oh, hello.
A feel good hug.
Aw.
Yay.
More dogs in poker.
Yes.
Oh, Len Ashby's gonna be
That's the campaign. We'll see you guys all same time tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Peace.
Later.
The real treasure is the